Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday. Hopefully you guys are doing well. We are back doing a live after 2 weeks. I missed you guys. And we're going to be doing live readings on the channel this evening by donation. And we're going to get right into it. Obviously, we just had a really amazing new moon in Gemini. So if you guys want questions answered about that lunation in your chart, let me know. If this is the first time that you're seeing me, make sure you click the bell button below. Subscribe to the channel so that way you're on the up and up with what's going on in the cosmos. We're here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. So just a heads up, if this is your first time doing this, we are going to be pulling up charts live and answering questions on YouTube, obviously, and there's a live chat going. You guys can get in the queue to get a reading by scanning this QR code right here. It's going to take you to my PayPal, or you can make a donation of $55 US. You scan that, it's going to take you there, and I just need a little bit of information from you. To cast your chart, I need this information. So I need your time of date exact with AM and PM, the date and year, as well as your location, city, and country of birth. That allows me to look at your chart and answer your questions. Please, please, please do not forget to put your specific question in the memo box so I know what to be looking for. For those of you guys who just want a general reading, I will be talking about what's going on with the new moon that we just had. We're still kind of feeling the vibes of that right now. There is a ton of people in the chat, so I want to run through this and say hi to everybody really quick. Jessica's here. Catherine, what's up? Hey, Lisa. Hey, Rosary, welcome to level 3. Brandy, Enchanted, David's here. Who else do we have? Frankie's here. What's up, Dorothy? Nice to see you. Jordan. Who else do we have? Red Druidess is here. Stephanie made it. Deanna's here. MK. Well, we got a full house tonight. I hope you guys are doing well. What's up? Only an Acre and Hiru. It's nice to see you guys. I have all of your questions, so don't worry. I will go through the laundry list and let you know who I've got already, both level 3 and also who's in the queue. Just a heads up, guys, there is a timer that you're going to be seeing on the screen because we have a ton of people getting readings. So we've got about 10 minutes left that we're going to leave the queue open. So if you want to get in, it's important to get your reading kind of, your spot kind of secured, because we will be closing that in about 10 minutes. So I haven't been here for a minute, but this is the very first live reading that we're going to be doing on the channel for the month of June. So this means if you're a level 3 member, just want to give you a heads up, you can cash in on your reading if you want, or you can come back any other Friday this month. Next week is going to be tarot as we alternate back and forth between weeks. So if you guys are one of those level 3 members, just give me a heads up because we take those members first. What's up, Paula? I see you. I'll add you to my list. And I will let you guys know in a second who I have. And I appreciate your patience because when we do astrology, it takes a lot longer than doing tarot. I want to make sure that I answer your guys' questions thoroughly. So I appreciate your patience. We do the readings in the order that we receive them. And I will call a couple names in advance to let you know that your reading is coming up. Equally, you will be able to have a playback of this reading when we are no longer live. You can come back to the video and you can take a look at your reading. So if you know that you want to get a reading but you can't stay, you can buy the reading and come back later, or you can make a note of what time in the video you were getting your reading so you can come back and watch the replay. We'll leave it up for you guys, okay? And just want to give a special thank you to all of my members. You guys are awesome. If you guys didn't already know, I've got memberships on the channel, 3 different levels. Level 1 gets you in and it donates to me for my content. We're doing long form content. We're talking all about horoscopes and new and full moon reports. We're teaching astrology as we go, and I'm a full-time content creator. So if you like my content, you can join level 1. Level 2, you get a shout out, and I will be shouting you out in just a second. And level 3, you're gonna get a reading included in your membership once a month. So you can cash in on that any of the Fridays that we're here live. So it's kind of cool because you can kind of stay in touch and get a reading monthly with me. So awesome people who are a part of level 2 and 3. I want to give you guys your shout out for the month. We had Rosary who just joined and she's in the chat. So welcome Rosary to level 3. We've also got Jennifer Jones, Jen C, Jenny Stewart, Still Ripples, Dorothy, Brandy, Claire, Catherine Murray, David, Cece, Laverne, Amy, Diego, Wild Moon, Loida, Darlene, Christine, Queen of Light Bulbs, Erica, Grow Up Together, Nancy, My Life is Jordan, MK, Indie Intuitive, Victoria Rusk, Thunder Spooks, Blonde Hair, Jessica Solis, Deanna, Enchanted Crossroads, Shannon Grant, Steve Yantes, Paula, Angela, Willow, Emma, Taliba, Jackie, Jessica Martinez, and Susan Lexler. You guys are awesome. Some of you guys have been members for almost over 2 years. So that's like wild that you guys have been supporting my channel. Big thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Let's get right into it. So here is my master list of what I have. And I'm just moving a couple things around here because we've got a couple members that are checking in with me. All right. So for level 3 people that I have, if you guys hear your name, I've got you. So Catherine Murray, Jessica S, Brandy, Enchanted Crossroads, Queen of Light Bulbs, Rosary, My Life is Jordan, MK, and Paula. So I'll be taking you guys. Besides that, we have waiting in the queue, and I just want to update this to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Let's make sure, because we've always got somebody sneaking in. And we do, so I'll add this one in. For who's waiting in the queue, Lauren K, Ashley, Lisa, Frankie, Hiru, Miss Grace, and Daniel. So if you guys heard your name, I've got you. You're good. You're in the queue. You might have to grab a snack and hang around and have a drink for a second or two. But we will definitely make sure that we get to you and get your reading. And I want to add one more person really quick, get Daniel in here so that way I don't have to make you guys wait. How was everybody's how was everybody's new moon in Gemini? How was that for you? I know we're still kind of feeling it. It's a bit sweet and salty with some of those Saturn aspects, but that Venus Cazimi was a lot. Anybody have any good stories? All right, so we'll save. Let's see. There is still a few minutes left. If you want to join, you can jump in for sure. We're going to leave it open for like another 10 minutes or so. I think I found my life partner. It says somebody post on Twitter. They were like, if he's not texting you during the Venus Cazimi, he don't love you. And I was like cracking up. I was like, this is hilarious. So good, so good, so good, so good. Looks like Kimberly got in there. What's up, Kimberly? I think I've got your chart too. Let me pull that up. 7:30. Yep, I got you too. Okay, cool. So I have got everybody in. We'll get going so I don't keep you guys waiting any longer. We're going to start with Catherine. I don't know if she's here or not. Sometimes she's sleeping, sometimes she's not. Enchanted said, when on a road trip, things were weird. Therapist told me about her personal life. Not expecting that. Okay. Speaking up at work. Yeah. It's been a bit of a mixed bag for people. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our level 3 people. So I'm going to talk to Catherine, Jessica S, and Brandy. You guys are on deck. Okay. All right, Catherine, I saw that you were saying some of your messages were getting deleted, so I don't know if you were asking a specific question or not, but I'm going to give you like the rundown with what's kind of going on with your chart right now. So Catherine is a Leo rising with a sun in Scorpio, and she's got a moon in Leo. And this most recent new moon in Gemini was taking place in your Placidus 10th house. So you got a lot of energy that's kind of going through there, obviously whole sign 11th. So there can be lots of focus on how you're feeling like you're connecting with other people, achieving goals, and feeling like in control of stuff. Especially with like the sun going through the 10th house with Mercury, there's much focus because you're ruled by the sun on feeling like you're taking care of business. So even if it's not working per se, it's just more added responsibility or feeling like you want to be kind of in control of what's going on in your life right now. We're going to see a Mercury Cazimi up next. So that's going to be something you guys are going to see in this next week. Obviously a really important moment for a Leo rising chart because it can represent some kind of like epiphany or awareness of something, contact and support that are coming from other people. That seems to be the theme. And obviously your sun being the ruler of your chart, you are now in your Neptune trine. So Neptune's kind of wavering around that 29 degrees of Pisces right now. It will retrograde in the future, not anytime soon. But when you have Neptune in a trine to your chart ruler, there is this feeling of being either more empathic. There can be a sense of being more intuitive, kind of tapped in. Sometimes you can feel a little creative, a little dreamy, a little whimsical. And it's coming from your 8th house. So there is this sense of there being like a major change, either energetically, financially, psychologically, from the 8th house to the 4th house. These are water houses. Obviously Neptune has, associations as a modern day ruler for Pisces, but the 8th house can be about transactions, money in, money out. And there can be lots of things that are either evolving and coming to some kind of major completion with your finances, joint finances, investments, and how it pertains to you and your overall well-being, sun being in the 4th house. One thing that I would say that maybe you want to watch for that's going to be happening, throughout this next couple of weeks is that there's going to be a number of squares that'll be going from Gemini into Pisces. And so this is going to kind of start to happen at the end of this week. Just be mindful in terms of communications when it comes to transactions and money. Make sure that you have a handle on things and that things are safe and secure. Sometimes we can see financial issues happen as a result of security issues when you have Saturn or Neptune in your 8th house. So those planets are going to come and they're going to square. Be cautious about whose advice you buy if you're, taking information or insight from online groups in regards to investing or transactions, or if you're reading a bunch of posts and stuff that's incentivizing you to make an investment or make a move. Be careful with whose advice you buy, right? That's the one thing that I would say that you really want to watch for. Outside of that, the other thing that kind of piques my interest also is that you do have the transiting South Node right now on top of your Venus. So this is a once in a 18, 19 year transit. The South Node can bring up themes revolving around past life or people from this past, lifetime. And it's in the 3rd house. So it can be about communications with neighbors. It can be about having messages and emails and contact from, women. Venus can be a woman. But it can also be with romantic partners from the past. There's trines that are going on to this as well. That's why I'm kind of bringing it up. Mercury, Venus, the sun, it's all trining. So it is possible that it can be female friends, people who maybe, you've known since, high school or grade school. It can also be that there can be more opportunities to socialize and connect with other groups of people. Locally, 3rd house can be your neighborhood. It can be, your apartment complex. So there can just be more socializing also that's kind of brewing as these planets are getting ready to move into your 11th house, where there's more of an emphasis in connecting and celebrating with other people. That trine to your Venus might mean also that you're hearing from people from the past who are saying, we haven't seen you for a long time, we'd like to get together, or I'm going to be in town, or maybe you're, getting social media ads from people that you haven't spoken to in a while. So it may really kind of liven up communication. I think the Cazimi in itself, with it, being conjunct Venus, that new moon, is pretty fortuitous. I think the real kind of drawback of this new moon is that we do see the squares to Saturn. So to kind of sum it up, there's sweet new beginnings and opportunities coming, but it comes at a cost. So one thing I notice is all those planets moving into your 11th house, which can really brighten up your social life, it can also, with the squares to the 8th house, mean that you're kind of like, oh my gosh, can I, do I really want to be spending money, going out all the time with these people? How do I feel kind of coming out of my comfort zone, getting out of my cave? And all the while, you also have Uranus that's starting to come into an opposition with your sun. So there's definitely going to be things where people are trying to kind of incentivize you or kind of trying to coax you out of being home all of the time, right? Because you have that sun in the 4th house. So I think that socializing and connection from other people or invitations from other people are going to start flowing in. Just be mindful of how much you're spending maybe when it comes to connecting with groups of people. Be careful with whose advice you're taking when it comes to financial transactions. In the next week or so, we're going to see some Mercury and Venus squares to Neptune. So this can also mean, be careful with what information you're sharing with other people about your investments, your finances, and things like that, especially if there's any kind of online interactions that you're doing with other people. I would just be really, really cautious about what you're telling them in regards to that stuff, okay? Hope you're feeling well. Hope you're doing well. Do make sure you come back. I know it's a little early, but I can see in your chart the impending full moon that we're going to have in August in Aquarius is going to be, it's going to light your chart up like a Christmas tree because it's going to be hanging out around 26 degrees. So it's going to square all of your stuff. So just make a mental note that you're going to want to check in with me about that in August. But I'm sure you will. And I will talk to you very soon. What's up, Kiki? Hey, Astrid. What's up, Robbie? How you doing? Mosa Bliss is here too. All right, so we've got Jessica S, Brandy, and then Enchanted. All right, so let's pull up. Where is she? Jessica. Readings are now closed. They are now closed. Okay, I want to make sure I have the right Jessica here. Give me 1 second. 2590. Okay. There's a couple Jessica S's, so I want to make sure I've got the right one. All right, so Jessica says, cashing in from El Paso. What's coming up in regards to love, money, career? I thought I saw another question maybe pop in here. Did you have something else that you wanted to add to that? I thought you said something earlier. Let me know. Jessica's a Scorpio rising, sun in Aquarius, moon in Gemini. Ooh, look at that moon Venus transit that you just got as a part of the new moon. All right, so love, money stuff. Probably the biggest emphasis is, well, it could be a little bit of both. I'm talking to someone, friend, romantic, maybe. It could be a little bit of both. So, all these planets hanging out in your Placidus 7th is definitely a very strong signature in connection to relationships, right? 7th house is partnerships, committed relationships, clients, one-on-one relationships. So the fact that you have Venus, which is the ruler of your 7th house, hanging out there is good. It's going to be there for another week or so. It is currently in conjunction to your moon, so you might be feeling like, there's a little bit more lovey-doveyness going on with another person, a lot more opportunities for connection, communication, and going deep, especially because your moon's at a 20. We will also see, the sun come into conjunction with that pretty soon, so that can also talk about some kind of partnership that's kind of setting up. And then we're going to see Jupiter later in the summer that's going to be hovering around that degree before it retrogrades. So I know you're a Scorpio rising through and through, but your chart, because you're a late degree, is kind of correlating more with the transits for Sagittarius rising, where they're just having all of these, planets moving through the 7th house. This is also all sextiling your 5th. Okay, so there's lots of opportunity for growth, communication, and really having a lot of opportunity to have a lot of kind of lovey-doveyness with the sun, moon, and Venus in conjunction in your 7th house. You might find that, people are more communicative. They're reaching out to you. They're really chatty. Obviously, for an Aquarius sun, this is also 5 signs away from your sun. So you'll hear the horoscope for Aquarius. It's going to be like new romantic opportunities, new hobbies, opportunities for falling in love, going and taking chances, getting pregnant. These things can happen. I only preface that because you've also got Jupiter on your moon this year. You're also going to be seeing that Uranus is coming into conjunction with your 7th house, and relationships can speed up very quickly. You're still having eclipses in your 5th house. So the one thing that you kind of want to think about that will inevitably happen throughout this year in August and December is that your chart really correlates with the Sag predictions of Saturn hanging out in the 4th house, where you're focusing on your home, your emotions, your foundation, where you're living, kind of building like a base for, the life that you're going to be having as planets start to kind of move into the upper part of your chart over the next few years. And it's going to square off with Jupiter. So you're going to see Jupiter as being like opportunities for growth, expansion, optimism, positivity, traveling. And Jupiter in a woman's chart it can be an indication of a transit that can kind of bring in a husband. So I like the fact that Jupiter is going to be there for a while. I like that it's going to be, trining your sun and also your North Node. I think this is opening the door for more in-depth conversations about what you're looking for in relationships, opportunities for road trips, traveling, learning from one another, sharing your perspective. So all of these things are really good. You're kind of getting out of what's been some rocky territory in recent years, where you have been, experiencing eclipses in your 1st and 7th house. The only thing that you're really still kind of tangoing with, and you will see this later this year, is that Uranus is going to come into conjunction with your descendant. So angles in the chart are super sensitive. They're something that you really have to recognize, you have to pay attention to, because they can be trigger points. And so usually you start feeling it within about 2 or 3 degrees. So you're already kind of in it. And it's probably going to really kind of kick into overdrive when Mars, which is you, and Uranus come into conjunction around mid-July. Uranus going into the 7th house, we see dramatic, sudden things happening with relationships. Your descendant is at a Gemini degree, so it can mean that you have conversations about needing more freedom in relationships. It can mean that you start talking more seriously, and suddenly about a future with another person. Because Uranus rules your 3rd house, I think it's going to be about spontaneous opportunities to travel, get out of town, and do things. But there can also be more than one person that can kind of come into your orbit. Traditionally, Mars and Uranus in conjunction is seen as a disruptive energy, although you're Mars. So it may be that you're kind of suddenly feeling like, oh my gosh, this relationship is kind of like really taking off, suddenly. So it can be that you're pushing for it. But it can also be a little turbulent because there can be friction with another person and somebody who needs some kind of freedom. And, you can kind of butt heads a little bit. What you're going to hear as an Aquarius is that this pertains more to changes with your home and also with your family. And as a Scorpio is that it's going to be some big changes revolving around freedom when it comes to relationships. It could very well be that the two of you guys decide, hey, we don't want to spend summer, indoors all the time. We want to get out. We want to go places. So I'm hoping that that's how that manifests for you in the background. It's also trining your Saturn, Venus, and your Mercury. So I think that actually it's got an outlet to, your 7th house ruler. So I think that's more also indicating that it's more relating to travel and communications and sharing of ideas. Another situation where you're going to see something totally lit up around the full moon in Aquarius in August, because that full moon is going to be, squaring some of these angles here. So just be mindful that like July and August seems to be like real hot zones for major changes in regards to relationships. Disruptive Uranus on your descendant, okay, but you are going to have Jupiter on your moon. So that does mean that you are learning to communicate differently in relationships, and you're seeing, the beauty of being with another person and the support and somebody who is like really, positive and kind of optimistic and upbeat. So maybe, there is a lot of support coming, even though maybe you're feeling a little uneasy about the idea of like commitment in a partnership. Okay. And all that stuff's also trining your 2nd house. So helping build on self-esteem, helping when it comes to money and resources. And Jupiter, after all, does rule your second house. So Jupiter going into the seventh house can be an indication that people are more generous with you. And you'll see even more of that as you get into your Jupiter return, which is going to be like next year. And one other thing that I would say is like, you know, you're going to have a number of retrogrades that are going to be impacting your eighth house of joint resources, saving, debt, and things like that. So I see what you're saying about like the money stuff, but you're going to have a Mercury retrograde that's going to be, you know, going through Virgo into Leo. So it's still the cusp of your eighth house. And then later in the year, December until the new year, you'll have a Mars retrograde, and that's going to oppose all of your personal planets. So just like a heads up, you want to be really coming up with a plan for trying to pay stuff off or paying things down, because that Mars retrograde in your eighth house in opposition to all your second house can be a bit of a pain in the butt. So you want to kind of have a plan between now and the end of the year to kind of handle that. And a retrograde in the eighth house can be a time where you can go and restructure debt. So you can go and you know, find a way to kind of like consolidate debt and, you know, kind of lump it all into one payment and then pay it at a lower interest rate. That might be something that you consider doing, especially because Mars is your chart ruler. But finances are actually not looking too bad next year as you're coming into your Jupiter return. It looks like there's some kind of growth that comes with like another person, you know? Yeah, don't sleep on retrogrades in the eighth house. That's a good time to renegotiate, you know, loans and interest rates and like all kinds of other things if you can, or refinancing things can be something else that you can do there too. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Jessica. That's going to be in December. It's going to be the beginning of December. It's going to go really until about March of 2025. All right, so we have got Brandy and then Enchanted, Queen of Light Bulbs after that. All right, so let's pull up Brandy. What's up, Brandy? All right, so let's see what Brandy's got going on and what her question was for me. Where was she? There we go. She's going to cash in January 22nd from in Omaha. Wanted you to know, first, you were right. Went on a retreat, met a bunch of new aromatherapists, herbalists, and friends. Awesome. Now I'm planning my own retreat in October, and the planning is fun, making me grow so much, hiring people, etc. What should I be mindful of while planning this? I doubt myself a lot. Okay, so it's going to be in October. When in October? I'd love to know. I like the fact that you've got Saturn in your ninth in Pisces and you're planning retreats and you're doing spiritual work. That seems pretty bang on. I think probably, you know, October, especially when we're getting into, okay, so October 4th through 7th. So let me look at that. All right. So right before the eclipse, or actually wait, no, right after the eclipse. Okay. So you're going to be doing the 4th. All right. So Venus is going to trine Saturn with the moon through the 7th. Okay, so you got Venus that's trining Saturn in your 9th house of travel. Obviously, Saturn rules clients and other people. The 9th house is traveling. This is very close to the eclipse. That's the only kind of thing that I have to say is that, you know, 2 days after the eclipse, you're doing this retreat. So you need to kind of maybe be prepared that there is going to be some stuff that's kind of going on with other people. But this is an eclipse that's going to be in Libra, and it's technically in your 3rd house. So it's about traveling, and it's right on the cusp of your 4th house. So it's trying to kind of push you out of the house because the moon is kind of active. It's moving. Mercury will cazimi with this eclipse, and it's the ruler of the 3rd. So I really feel like it's more about making sure you have all of your travel accommodations ironed out prior to this eclipse, like in advance. To be honest with you, like Cancer season is going to be a really good time to be making plans. We're going to see a number of planets, you know, Sun, Venus, Mercury move into Cancer, which is your rising sign, and it's going to trine Saturn. So I'll give you a couple dates where you can just make a note of where it might be ideal for you to kind of commit to things, because we want to do that with the trines to Saturn. The other thing is that this is going to be an eclipse with a cazimi. So it does seem to kind of represent like, you know, surprises and other things that may be coming as a result of the eclipse. And it will be ruled by Venus, and Venus is going to be in Scorpio. So it's more kind of tied to creative self-expression, playtime, you know, really anything in regards to something you're putting on or you're kind of, you know, creating. So this in itself can be an indication that it's about you, you know, curating some kind of an event. What I do like is that when this is happening, you're going to be starting to see, not only is Venus coming into a trine with Saturn, but it's also trining Mars in Cancer. And I think that, you know, Mars in Cancer can be a difficult transit because Mars isn't as comfortable being in a water sign, especially ruled by the moon, but it's in your 12th house. So it can be about doing deep like soul work, spiritual work, healing work, especially anything with emotions or like women or being by water. So I don't know if that's something you're doing. Certainly Mars will be in a square to the eclipse, but I think that this is just, you know, kind of getting you out of your comfort zone. And maybe it's going to be more about speaking and interacting with other people, because it's really highlighting the third house of communication. So expect there to be a lot of like back and forth emails, confirmation, stuff like that going on. But I think in terms of actually, you know, planning a retreat, yeah, do it. I really like that. I think the doubt is maybe coming from planets that are coming through Gemini, moving into your 12th house, which can be a little like, is this a good idea? Is it going to work? And it's squaring Saturn and Neptune this week. So I would say like kind of meditate on what kind of event you want to put on, how you want to curate it, what's it going to look like, what's it going to feel like. Really take time to meditate on some of this stuff. And then you can start really proceeding forward with making some cement kind of decisions as early as June 26th. Because you're going to start seeing Mercury trine Saturn. So that's great for being like, okay, I'm solid with my vision when it comes to what I'm teaching and where I'm going. The moon's going to activate that as well. And then another good transit is going to be when, just after the new moon in Cancer, the moon and Venus are also still going to be in a trine to Saturn as well. And that's around July the 5th. And then we're going to have the sun trine Neptune. Granted, it's at the last degree, but it's going to be right around the time of a full moon. And so I feel like something around like July 20th, 21st, 22nd is when some of these things are like more so solid and cemented. Maybe this is when, you know, you're sending out information to people, you're starting to pitch it, you're putting out emails, like stuff like that, because the full moon in your 7th house, it's going to be right on your descendant. So it can be relationship stuff too. But this is going to trine Neptune. And it's also going to be making some really nice aspects to your natal Mars, which means you're like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You know, you're letting people know this is the action that we're taking. Perfect. Yeah. So timing is like great. Really pay attention to then right around the time of that full moon for like feedback. But I really feel like Saturn transits are kind of interesting. Like, you know, I've seen so many clients that don't know anything about astrology, and then they have Saturn going through a certain house and they're like, well, this is what I'm having to teach, or this is what I'm having to learn how to do, you know? So Saturn in the ninth house is teaching you how to travel, how to be a way shower, how to also, I think, maybe orchestrate some kind of like education in a way, and also traveling. But timelines, yeah, great. Just expect some fireworks right around the time of that eclipse that's going to be happening. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Where are you guys going on your retreat? That's definitely something I would like to do. I'd like to do a retreat. That sounds like that would be fun. All right, so we have got Enchanted, who is asking questions about the new moon, and then Queen of Light Bulbs and Rosary. You guys are on deck. Nice. I love Mexico. All right, so we've got Enchanted, and if I remember correctly, you're asking about this recent new moon. All right. So the new moon was in your third house. Did you say you were on a road trip and things were weird? The new moon was in your third house of short distance trips, siblings, and communication. So that's no surprise that maybe you were on the road. I think that what's interesting about this is that there was a Cazimi involving your seventh house lord. Okay, so it does seem to be about communication, connection, dealing with other people, talking to other people. It can be taking clients on the road. It can be talking to people while you're going through town. It can be, just doing a lot of driving around and having to ask for directions or just having to communicate more than you typically would. What's cool though is that as an Aquarius sun, it is fifth house to your sun. So it does kind of represent being more creative in your communication process, sharing ideas and stuff with people. There can be learning new, techniques, especially in the third house, listening to new podcasts, reading new books, some kind of new way of communicating and connecting. Like, I think this would be a really cool new moon and you can kind of still do it if you want to sit down and write a list of all of the things that you're hoping to achieve. And it can be in regards to social media as well. It can be in regards to relationships. It can be new places that you want to travel to. And obviously it was friendly as an Aries rising. It was sextiling your Venus by about 10 degrees, but it's still sextiling. And a little too wide for a trine to your north node. Okay, maybe 10 degrees, I guess. So this created an air trine in your chart. So there's a lot of moving around, connecting with other people, and taking time to reflect. Did you find that when you came back, you were kind of overstimulated and you were like a 12th houser, I need my space? Because that could have happened with this. The squares to Saturn was a lot of okay, I'm not used to having this much kind of interaction with people. It was at a 16 too, so it does seem to kind of represent processing emotions while you're on the go, things involving home, family, relatives, all of that stuff, or being more in touch with your emotions. And so this is a good moon for journaling or writing things down and learning how to make changes in the way that you communicate and talk to yourself, or making changes in the way that you're thinking about things, and not letting fear get in the way, not letting yourself kind of isolate yourself, getting outside of your comfort zone, learning to connect and communicate with people outside of your usual kind of hangout. So if these things happened, I think it's good. I'm trying to go home 3,000 miles away. I know what that's like. I did that earlier in the month. I think that the other thing that I would take into consideration is that, Mercury has not hit this degree yet. Jupiter has not hit this degree yet. And so I spoke about this in my new moon video. I was like, look, when we have the Cazimi, there's going to be more things relating to this new moon. And when Jupiter hits that degree, we're also going to see some kind of manifestation of that new moon. Now, here's what's cool. When Jupiter activates 16 degrees, it's going to be with Mars. And that is your chart ruler. So it makes me feel like maybe you're going to be doing more traveling. Maybe you're going to be doing more connecting with other people, or there is suddenly more clients and more sessions that are coming in. And this is going to be in mid-August, right here. And remember, Mars and Venus love each other. So when we have this conjunction, Mars and Jupiter, I think, is a positive, it's a positive energy, because Mars rules the North Node. So if it's meeting with a benefic planet like Jupiter, people are going to be very proud, and they're going to be speaking up and communicating, and they're going to feel very confident. So there is a sense of you being yeah, I've been, kind of connecting with people more. I've been kind of traveling around a little bit. I'm feeling more confident with what I'm doing. So that'll happen around mid-August, and it's going to trine your Pluto, which is very powerful in terms of your connection with other people, romantic or platonic, or with clients. This might also be good for social media and kind of seeing more traction, or maybe on a website. The only challenge, because there is a challenge here, is that it will come into a square with Saturn. So you'll want to kind of pay attention, like what happens in this next week when the sun's going to square Saturn on Sunday. We're going to see Mercury square Saturn a couple days later. So pay attention to some of that stuff. And I think it's like mind over matter, with Gemini squares to Saturn and Neptune. But write everything down. Start keeping a journal. That might be something cool. Like start writing down your intentions, or writing down like mantras or something that you like remind yourself. Because we're really going to see this energy like pick up momentum in mid-August. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And also it's all in opposition to Neptune. So that's a whole other thing, but it's about reminding yourself regularly, or writing something down regularly, or having some kind of pattern or repetition that you're following, so you're not feeling like lost, or you're not feeling like you're losing faith. And Gemini is also about like very basic general information. So it might mean that you're like doing some kind of review of, astrology books or tarot reading books, or just like beginners things, and doing like refresher courses on things as well, especially with Jupiter being in the 3rd house. You might be going back to basics and reminding yourself some stuff. Cool. Working on getting PayPal on your YouTube page. I like it. Good luck. Hopefully you're building a website or something with that, or revamping social media, because it's really good for those placements. All right, so we've got Queen of Light Bulb, Rosary, and then Jordan. You guys are all next. All right, so we've got Sinistry for Queen of Light Bulb. Let's see. So we've got you here. Let's see. Yeah. Leo rising, sun in Cancer, and then your moon is in Aries. And we have got a Sinistry reading with someone else. There we go. And let's pull up your question here. Where are you? There you are. All right, so she says, okay, so the other person is November 14th, 78. Got that on the outer wheel. Okay, I'm curious about the potential and pitfalls of this connection. It almost seems too spicy to take beyond platonic. His chart reads as slutty and secretive to me, but in a way that will be familiar to me and possibly triggering, or both, as an intimate context. Is it best to be firmly friend zoned before damage is done and channel the energy differently? I love any additional insights, warnings, or advice you might have. Aspects that stand out to me: his Juno conjunct my South Node, his Black Moon, Lilith conjunct, and Jupiter conjunct your North Node. Trining my Black Moon, Lilith conjunct his Sun, his Scorpio stellium in my 4th. Conjunct my IC. All right, and Vesta with the North Node. Well, let's take a look. So let me just look at his chart really quick. So Leo rising, moon in Taurus, and he's a full moon baby. Oh, girl, he's got Venus retrograde in Scorpio. Woof. And conjunct Uranus. Those ones are freaky. All right, so one thing that I would say that's just food for thought, just not even looking at your Sinistry yet, just something to consider with their transits, is that there's two real glaringly kind of 7th house things that are kind of going on here. One is, Saturn is the traditional ruler of the 7th house, and Saturn is getting ready to come into conjunction with the South Node. So that in itself, even though that's happening next year, there's going to be a Venus retrograde there, a Saturn transit there. There's going to be a Mercury retrograde with the North Node, and then eclipses. So it's very obvious to me that both September of this year and spring of next year, there's a lot of karmic shift happening with relationships, with all of that stuff. Saturn on the South Node, ruled traditionally by Jupiter, and he's got Jupiter right along the ascendant in the 12th house. So it can be talking about some kind of karmic partner comes in, you process something, and then it could be short-lived. We'll look at the Sinistry. 2 is the fact that he was born on a full moon. So obviously I love the exalted moon in Taurus. I'm not mad at it. But this is somebody who's got that kind of intensity, polarity built into their personality. And obviously, a Leo rising chart, the sun's going to be an important placement. The sun's conjunct Uranus. You can't tell them what to do. They can be very all over the place, right? And they can also be very secretive, kind of protective, not in a bad way, but they can be. And in the fourth house, it tells me that there was a lot of like destabilizing things that have happened to them in their early childhood development. So, you know, maybe they didn't see a lot of stability and security growing up in relationships as a child. So they can be like a runner, right? The other thing to take into consideration is that Uranus, which is the modern day ruler of the 7th house, is coming into conjunction with the moon. And the moon rules the 12th house. So it can talk about a lot of subconscious things that start happening. Okay, you know, he could meet a witchy woman who's into astrology, Uranus, and is talking to him about, you know, his past and astrology and karmic stuff. And he's like, wow. But emotionally, he's going to be a little all over the place with Uranus on his moon. And it can be that he's a little iffy about the idea of changing his public status and identifying as being in a relationship. And there could be something where it's like the relationship is kind of being, you know, kept private in a way. That could happen. And, you know, you don't need me to tell you, Venus conjunct Uranus people are not the most stable or consistent in relationships. We love them anyway. But you add that in with a Venus in Scorpio, which is retrograde, okay, and in opposition to Chiron. Have you asked him, like, who hurt him? Just wondering. Just ask him, who hurt you? And his moon's conjunct Algol. So these people, especially if Scorpio sun, if this is a full moon in Taurus, there is a very intense personality here. All right, so let's look at the Sinistry. Okay. So he's got Jupiter conjunct your north node and in your 12th house. So that's not necessarily bad. It does feel like there is some kind of gift coming back from the past. He's got his sun conjunct your natal Uranus. So you guys both have that kind of, you know, natally in the 4th house. So you guys are both used to kind of being Uranian. You got it on an angle. I do feel like there's a lot of like stimulating emotions here, and feeling maybe familiar or kind of like blast from the pasty. I like the North Node Vesta. That just basically means he's going to want to feed you. He's going to want to, you know, did you have dinner? Are you hungry? You want to go out and get something? You know, that kind of vibe. The thing that I'm wondering though is that his sun is directly in opposition to your Chiron. So that can mean that, you know, there can be this feeling like you're being pulled in two directions, you know, from being private and hidden and safe versus being out and exposed, and what that means for people to know that you're potentially like in a relationship like that. South Node Juno's not bad. I say that as like a familiar partnership energy from the past. It's not exact, but it's close enough that, you know, there is some sense of, oh, we know how to partner, right? And South Node Aquarius is, we gave each other freedom, you know, you do whatever you want to do. Or maybe there was something Uranian in regards to the union, and maybe there was a divorce, or there was a, you know, no strings attached kind of, you know, friend with benefits situation in the past, but you were still devoted to each other. But that's the past. So what's interesting is that you guys have connections to the South and the North Node. At least in your chart. So where Juno's on the South Node, where maybe you didn't stay in a union in the past, Jupiter is on the North Node, which means that there can be some sense of togetherness and growth and learning and travel and like beneficial things that can come. Obviously, you know, with like Lilith aspects, you know, in conjunction to the North Node, it's a little wide. It's more than 10 degrees, you know, but still, if a man has Lilith and Jupiter in conjunction, they're very drawn to obviously like Lilith themes, especially under the realm of Leo. So dramatic, you know, very creative, very kind of cat-like, big hair, you know, sometimes, sometimes a little feisty, a little demanding, but I don't think he minds it. I mean, Jupiter square Venus retrograde. He's definitely got some very specific preferences when it comes to women. I'll leave it at that. No, I haven't gotten that deep with his emotional history, but I know he's had a rough go in recent years. But I'll put that in question. I don't see this as like a need to run for the hills. But let's see. So he's also born with Mars square Saturn, and his Venus trines your Mars, so that's nice. And then let's flip this around. Let's see what he's got on the other side. So you guys both have planets in each other's 12th house, so that can feel like unfinished business. Your point of fortune's on his midheaven. Okay. South Node Juno, there, okay, the 6th. And you've got your Venus in his first house. I fit that bill. You know, Venus in the first house, it's going to be really hard to kind of like resist you. And all of that energy from your North Node, your Venus, your Ceres, it's all kind of trining into his 5th house. And he's got Lilith on the ascendant. He's spicy. I don't think it's bad though, because, you know, in your chart, your Mars and Venus see each other both ways. So I don't really see the problem. Granted, the Mars-Venus aspect you guys have between your Venus and his Mars, it's wide, but they're both in fire signs, and then the other way, it's in water signs. I really think that something that I would just kind of keep in mind is that just having Venus conjunct Uranus would be enough to be like, hey, there's a lot of looking at relationships very differently for this person. But because his descendant is an 11, I don't know if he's already been divorced, but generally that's what we see when you have 11 degrees on the descendant. And because he's got his 7th house ruler in the 4th, conjunct Venus, it means that he tends to have on and off relationships, or people from the past can kind of come back. So you need to be mindful that he may still stay friends with people, or he may kind of keep tabs with people. And he can be a little like private when it comes to relationships and partnerships. But I really think with Uranus crossing his moon over the next like year or so, it's going to be an opportunity for him to be able to kind of open up a little bit more emotionally, be a little bit more vulnerable. Your Chiron is there, so maybe you can kind of help, you know, soothe some of his fears that he has. And just with that North Node Jupiter conjunction, you guys really bring a lot of wisdom and positivity and like growth to one another. Because any which way you slice it, it's going to be hanging out around the 1st house, because you guys are both Leo risings. I'm trying to see something like bad. I mean, it's a wide orb from your Venus square his Uranus. If anything, all of your Leo stuff pushes on his 4th house Scorpio, which is about getting out of the past and like learning how to be more open. You know, both of you guys are undergoing South Node Libra transits right now. So, you know, with the South Node eclipses and things activating your Pluto, maybe you guys are learning to transmute any issues that you've had from previous relationships. And now there's a South Node that's coming for his Saturn and his Jupiter. Your Saturn and your Jupiter. So that can also be almost like an entry point where somebody can be coming in because your Saturn is exalted. And Saturn rules your 7th. So it does mean that relationships for you get better with age, learning not to define yourself or your worth based off of whether or not somebody wants you. And it may mean that with the South Node coming into conjunction here, somebody chooses you. These are all good things. That eclipse that's going to be happening in Pisces is going to be close enough to your 7th house that you might kind of see in the fall that this is really focusing on what's going on with relationships. That full moon that's going to be happening for you in August. I know I keep bringing it up, but yeah, there's several people who have charts that are going to get activated with that. That's going to be a doozy because it's going to sit on your descendant, oppose your ascendant, square Uranus, and also square your midheaven. So relationship themes are a big deal for you in August. Black Moon Lilith on our suns respectively doesn't look bad to you. Not necessarily. I mean, it depends on which Lilith you're looking at. I think I used the true Lilith or the mean. I'm not sure. I have to look at my software, but it's not that close. It's 14 degrees away from your sun. And, you know, his Lilith is what? Yeah, I mean, this one's at 8 degrees. This is at 22. I don't feel like they're close enough to cause a problem. No. And even though they're close, look, there's trines. Lilith trine Lilith, right? And you've got Lilith trine the North Node, and then with this Lilith, when we flip that around, where is it? Why am I losing it? Oh, and then we've got Lilith in your 5th house, trine the ascendant. I mean, it's fire, you know, so it's going to be passionate. I feel like with a man that has, you know, Lilith and Jupiter. So Jupiter was a philanderer. He was not very, you know, committed to his partner, Hera. So having Jupiter on the ascendant in Leo is a very sexy kind of placement, and it's at an 8. So he's got Jupiter and Lilith, which means he likes the idea of the woman that can't be tamed. You know, he likes going after those women. That's something that he craves. And like these particular Scorpios from 78 that have the Venus retrograde and the Uranus conjunction, they're very unconventional, and that is magnified because of the square to Jupiter. So there's lots of kind of like skeletons in the closet, like sexually for this one. With all those placements in the 4th house. So there's definitely some kinks that he's into that would definitely be pretty interesting. But I think that with your North Node conjunct, you know, his ascendant and his Jupiter and his Lilith, it could be a lot of growth that can come through exploring that, but not also feeling like it needs to be too dominating, if that makes sense. Yeah, you'll have to let me know how that one goes. Both of you guys have some really significant stuff going on. Those full moons that you're going to have in Capricorn over the summer, and you're going to have ones that are going to be, you know, direct on his descendant. July and August are going to be really colorful times. yeah. Venus retrograde in Scorpio. Let me know how that goes. Good luck. I hope that's helpful for you. We've got Rosary, Jordan, MK, and then Paula. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Rosary, let me pull up your chart. Where is it? Oh, I could have sworn I had you in here. Let's see. Why are you missing? Maybe I didn't save you. Okay, let me plug Rosary in really quick. I know you're a new member, so thanks for joining us. And let's see here. Remember, it was in the Philippines, but there we go. March 17th, 92. $11:51 a.m. All right, so plug that in. All right, so let me make sure this is correct. Thanks for your patience. Good night, Enchanted. Okay, so Rosary, I've got you here, March 17th, 92. That was at 11:51 a.m. So it looks like you are a Cancer rising with your sun in Pisces and your moon in Virgo. So if I didn't lose you, hopefully you're still here. Let's take a look at what your question is. Sorry guys, I gotta scan through the chat. Takes me a second. Where's that? There we go. I'd like to get my reading, just a general reading for the month of June. All right, so for starters, being a Cancer rising, most of the planets the first 3 weeks of the month are going to be moving through the 12th house, okay? So the 12th house can be solitude, healing, spirituality, rest and recuperation, anything to do with meditation, reflection, journaling. This is the time of the year where all of the planets are going through Gemini before it comes into Cancer. So it can be this energy where, you are preparing for the planets to go into your first house. So there feels like there's like this completion or something that's kind of like winding down. For Pisces, you're going to hear that it's about changes in regards to your home, in regards to your family, maybe rearranging your space or your bedroom of sorts. That can kind of happen. And the squares that are going to be happening to both Saturn and Neptune in your sign do kind of indicate that there is a change in the way that you see things or the way that you perceive things or what you believe or how you're communicating or connecting. Naturally, when planets go into the 12th house, we want to retreat a little bit. So you're going to be feeling that pretty much now until planets start to come out of this square. And it's looking to me like from about June the 21st on, the sun, Venus, Mercury. So your energy and vitality, your health, your beauty, your attractiveness, your relationships, and also communication are all going to sit in the first house. So it might be about 2 weeks of just kind of feeling like you're in hermit mode, basically. And then as these planets continue to move through Cancer, there is much more focus on your body, your appearance, your goals. And there's going to be a full moon actually that's taking place around the 21st. And that's going to be hitting your ascendant and your descendant pretty closely. So there may be lots of like relationship themes that are going on in the third week of June. You'll see again the third week of July that there's going to be a blue moon. So a second full moon that'll be in your 7th house. So you have like a double dose of what's going on with my relationships, my partnerships, or my clients, or my relationships with bosses, because Capricorn can be bosses or career. All of these will also, come into squares that will be kind of taking place with your natal Mercury. So there is this sense of like where in the end of June you're learning to be more assertive, you're learning to be more direct with other people, maybe feeling like you're standing up for yourself. And I think this is actually a good energy because while all of these planets are squaring your Mercury, which can make you feel like you're kind of under pressure to communicate and connect, the North Node is on top of your Mercury. So a lot of Cancer risings with the eclipses, the retrogrades, the nodal activations are really figuring out what they want to be doing with their career. They're feeling more determined to stand out and to make something happen and to be entrepreneurial or to be a leader or to move into uncharted territory in regards to your career. Maybe you're feeling more confident or more competitive professionally as well. So that's also kind of hanging out in the background. And because you're ruled by the moon, the full moons are going to be a lot more impactful. So both of them are actually really interesting in your chart. The first one is actually going to trine your moon and your Jupiter. So it's really saying like communicate, get out there, tell people what you think, tell them how you feel. It may be that you're having to have meetings and stuff with people because the third house can be about emails, communication, stuff like that. But the second one that you're going to have, which will be in July, that one is going to be, there we go, a very different moon. It's going to be at 29 degrees. And this is going to be right on the cusp of your 8th house. So this is about, after speaking out, the physical, financial, emotional changes that kind of come from that. And that at least that full moon is going to be sextiling Neptune and also your sun. So I think that's going to be supportive for really kind of seeing some of those changes in regards to your status or your career. The other thing to think about is that as planets are going through your 12th house right now, there is like a natural completion or conclusion. So things do wrap up here. So I think with like, Gemini being intercepted in your chart, if you notice your 12th house starts with Taurus and then your first house starts with Cancer. When we have interceptions by sign, it means it's a blind spot. So when I see Gemini and Sagittarius intercepted, there can be communication issues. There can be a need to go back and reevaluate your thoughts or your beliefs or something pertaining to learning. So I noticed like Saturn's in your 9th house and Jupiter's in your 12th. So that can be a year where you're contemplating or considering, do I want to go and get some kind of training? Do I need a mentor? Do I need to do some kind of program? Do I go back to school? Am I wanting to get a certification for something? So that can be coming up for you throughout that transit. So just know that with planets in the 12th house intercepted, there can be almost like things that you're missing, that you're not seeing, that you have to either read about, learn about, listen to better integrate, to have a better understanding of either yourself, the direction of where you're going in your life, or your career. Go and learn about having interceptions in the 12th house. It can also mean that there are things that just kind of hit you out of the blue that you don't see coming. And Gemini can be stuff your neighbors say, your siblings say, unexpected things with travel, unexpected things with cars or gadgets. And these squares that are going to happen with Saturn and Neptune can indicate that it can be about blind spots in terms of communication in your professional life. Okay? But yeah, if you're feeling very different around the 3rd week, that's when you're going to start to feel the tide kind of start to turn. And oh, P.S., you're coming into your nodal squares. So that's not really happening in the next month, but that's something else that I would encourage you to learn about. When you have the transiting north and south nodes square the nodes in the chart, it means that kind of like the north node is transiting in between your north and south node. There are things that happen that year where you're like, okay, what I've been doing isn't working, but I don't really know where I'm going. You have to learn new skills when you have that. Your north node is at 6 degrees in Capricorn in the 7th, which means you're here to learn how to work with other people, how to help other people, how to do relationships, how to build relationships. And so I think that north node going through your 10th house with Mercury is encouraging you to be more assertive when it comes to who you're working with, or when it comes to kind of standing up for yourself. And I think that that's going to be a helpful lesson over the next couple of weeks and months as you're, preparing in a couple of years to go into your nodal return, which is going to very much be about learning how to communicate better, I think, in relationships. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And we've got Jordan, MK, and then Paula. David says, smash that like button. All right, so let's see what's going on with Jordan. I want to make sure that I've got the right info. We have not done Daniel yet. Don't worry. Where was Jordan? Where is she? Okay, there's MK. There you go. Cashing in, would love to know some goals to set for this lunar cycle and a general reading. All right, so May 24th. All right, we got the right one. Let's take a look. So we just had this new moon in Gemini for you. And it looks like for you, Jordan, it was happening in your 8th house, and it was in conjunction to your vertex. What's going on with your relationships right now? That's a pretty significant, sorry guys, a pretty significant transit with Venus being there. All right, so vertex at 16 degrees. You had a new moon planting new seeds with the Venus Cazimi. Venus rules your 7th house. So if you're single, this is more about setting intentions in regards to relationships that are going to bring you opportunities for money, intimacy, depth, lots of communication and exchanges, and being like very vulnerable and like raw with people. Nothing major happened with relationships, but okay. So that would be my intention. The other thing that you can look at is also this was ruled by Mercury, and Mercury was right on top of your sun. and Jupiter is right on top of your Mars. Like, these are some really good transits all at one time. Jupiter brings you more money, resources, and security. Mercury brings you the opportunity to connect with other people in exchange in some way. There's always like a karmic exchange with the 8th house. It's about like karmic ties that you have to other people. So it can be financially, intimately, psychologically, whatever. But all of these planets, Venus on the sun, Jupiter on your sun, Mercury conjunct your sun and your Mars, this is about setting intentions in regards to vulnerability, healing. Be a great time if you were like, I need to go and see a healer, or I need to talk to a therapist, you could do that. I think this is also about research and learning more about psychology. This can be about investments as well, and what you're doing with your wealth, or where you're investing your money, or what's going on with your savings, or what other people give you. So it would be love, abundance, healing, and transformation. That's a big theme with the 8th house, is transformation. Really, really, really big transits all at one time. This particular new moon is going to get triggered a couple times. So you're going to see in a couple months, there's going to be that full moon, not that full moon, excuse me. There's going to be a Jupiter conjunction. So you're going to see it in mid-August, and then it's going to come back. It's going to hit it again in December, and then it's going to come back, and it's going to hit it again in April. And let's see. My partner and I did just start implementing a new budgeting system this past weekend. Cool. So, the vertex can be basically talking about people coming in. It can be talking about, fated encounters. That's ruled by Mercury, and you've got Mercury in your 7th house in Taurus, conjunct your moon. So it's talking to my partner, 7th house, Mercury, about money, Taurus, conjunct the moon, so that way you can have enough money for a down payment. So something got triggered in regards to having in-depth conversations and being more vulnerable and talking about, debt and savings and credit scores and all of these things, because what you're hoping to achieve. This was all also coming into a square with Saturn, which is currently hanging out in your 5th house. So it can be about romantic partners, boyfriends, stuff like that. And that does mean maybe with the squares to Saturn, it's like, well, we are, cutting back on some things. We're not spending as much money on entertainment or going out and, whatever. But I think that what you'll find is that when Jupiter comes back into conjunction with the vertex, probably around the 3rd time, you guys will find that you're having another conversation next year being like, this is what we were able to save. This is how much money we set aside. This is how much we paid our debt down, all that fun stuff. And simultaneously, Pluto is still squaring your Saturn. So that's why there's a lot of like working hard to be on top of, money and resources, because you're Pluto, in order to change and transform your home while it's on top of your Neptune at the same time. But like, oh my goodness, Pluto's trining your Mars. That's a great transit while Jupiter is there. I think Jupiter going into your 8th house is going to teach you that there's a lot of strength in working together, bringing your money together, pooling your resources, finding ways to be able to help, benefit one another. It may also be talking about ways that you can improve your credit. So it might mean that you guys are talking about, well, we're going to share a credit card together, or we're paying something down together, or we're opening up a new line of credit, or we're going to open up a joint banking account where we're saving, or some higher interest account. That could be something else that you're doing. But yeah, the next couple of years with Pluto trining your Mars is really wonderful. I think Jupiter is just showing you how working with another person benefits you. And Pluto trining your sun as well is, where you guys can kind of like manage something and really take care of something and like work hard and transform something about your joint resources, so you then can have more flexibility with your living situation. So all of that is kind of built into it. I would say sit down and write out your intentions in regards to what you're hoping to achieve with your finances, your wealth, and also a down payment. So set some intentions, write everything down, and watch the dates when Jupiter comes back over these degrees. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Definitely the Saturn transit on your Jupiter, there's a little bit of like scaling back on some things. Saturn in Pisces is like not going out every Friday or Saturday, not that you necessarily do that, but I could see that happening with the Jupiter square, that you're finding ways to kind of have fun or have date nights or, be creative without spending a lot of money. Good luck. We've got MK and then Paula. What's up, MK? I did cancel my subscriptions to prioritize the good ones. Well done. Let's see what MK said. Where was that? Hello, I'd like to cash in on my reading. My boyfriend has been super busy and exhausted for several years now. When will his schedule be more manageable? Oh, we're looking at somebody else. Okay. MK boyfriend. April 16th, 1993. And that was 4:17 p.m. in Whittier. All right, so we got Virgo rising, Sun in Aries, Moon in Pisces. Crazy schedule. When are things going to give him a bit of a break? All right, so he's a Virgo rising. And he's got his Moon in Pisces, Sun in Aries. Well, interesting stuff going on here. So first of all, your boyfriend's born with Saturn and the Moon in his 6th house. So, you know, Saturn in the 6th house does talk about sometimes all work, no play, constantly doing, right? Giving, routine and habits. And the Moon is conjuncted to that. So there's something emotionally ingrained that's like, I have to work, I have to constantly be there, I have to adhere to a schedule, you know, and the impact it has on him emotionally. His sleep even as a Pisces Moon. His health, his habits, all of that stuff. And his career is ruled by Mercury, okay? And he's got Mercury in the 7th, conjunct Venus, which is retrograding. So technically it belongs to his whole sign 8th, so there can be a huge fixation with his chart ruler, conjunct Venus retrograde, of, you know, do I have enough? Do I need more resources? Am I making enough? And feeling that pressure. Now, Jupiter rules the partner, and it's in the 1st house. So he should have a partner that's like, you're working too much, you need to slow down. That's trying to kind of guide him and give him that insight. But there can be almost like a tendency to just, it's ingrained in him to overwork and not know how to slow down, and he can have burnout. Anyway, in terms of when things are going to get better, well, there is kind of a few things going on in the chart. A new moon that he just had on his midheaven, which doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be a new job or a new opportunity coming, but it can. That was with Venus, so it does mean that there can be new financial opportunities, raises, there can be new status changes and things that are on the horizon. And you've got this new moon, which was kind of in a square to Saturn, which means that there can be some things going on with a relationship to another person, and that person can be kind of like, okay, well, what about me? You know, like, are you making time for me or what I need? And Saturn is the one who's in control. So the partnership is the one saying, hey, maybe you should look for a new job, or maybe you should, you know, consider, scaling back a little bit, or maybe you should think about if you want to do this long term. So I don't know if you found yourself saying these things, but it could have been coming up. He's undergoing a Mars transit. It is fading. But there's been a lot more pressure, I think, with Mars on his Sun, and he's felt probably kind of like really irritable or, a little tense with that transit, needing more rest and alone time. This new moon is going to play out for 6 months. So it can be an indication that there is something new on the way, and likely you're going to want to watch when the Mercury Cazimi happens here later this week, where Mercury, which rules his chart, pulls ahead of the Sun rules the 12th house, and it can be a time around the 15th of June where he's like, I just don't know if I can keep working like this anymore. You know, maybe it's time for me to rest and step down from this. Maybe he's like, I just can't deal with my boss. Like there's something going on with like superiors, or just feeling like the weight of the work. And sometimes a cazimi, even though it's a positive thing, if it involves the 12th house lord, it can mean that something is coming to an end. And when that happens, this is all squaring Neptune. So it means that the partner is going to be more sensitive and attentive to the fact that he's going through that. But at the same time, they're like, why aren't you listening to me? So try to be patient with him. Jupiter is going to go into his 7th house this year. His 10th house this year. So that's going to give him the opportunity to have new jobs or, new potential or like a new status of sorts. In both August and December, Jupiter will square Saturn. So just because there's a new job or there's something that changes, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to continue to keep overdoing it. And so when Jupiter then squares Saturn, a partner's still going to be like, dude, don't be working yourself overtime. Concerned about his well-being. He's going to take summer classes, but considering taking the summer off and going back to school in the fall instead. Education is more the 9th house. And so Jupiter will be hanging out, in the 9th house and then going into the 10th house. So he'll have time if he wants to do that. But I have a feeling that he's going to realize in July he can't do both. When Mars comes in conjunction with Uranus, he's going to be like, this is too much for me. So, if he is going to be, wanting to take, summer classes, he needs to scale back at work, or, if he's going to be working, he can wait and take courses in the fall, because if he tries to do two things at the same time, he's going to burn out, especially in July. So I would definitely encourage him to pick one of the two. If he does also look for like another type of job or like another position, or if he just kind of takes a look around, there will be opportunities that will be coming for him. Not only because you're going to see Jupiter in the 10th house, and that's going to be closer to here, so right around like August, September. But then it's going to come back and it's going to be there again next year as well in the spring. But Mercury also rules his 10th house, and Gemini midheaven, so Virgo risings, they have a tendency to multitask. They juggle. So that's why they, go to school and work, or they work more than one job, or they have more than one responsibility at work. The North Node's coming into conjunction with his Mercury as well. So there is an inevitable kind of job change coming, and that's going to be in the new year. So what's really interesting is when the North Node hits his Mercury, so this will be like December going into January, and then Jupiter goes back into his 10th house, there is something changing for him in spring. So I don't know if he's like getting ready to graduate. Maybe he's going to be going into a different kind of work altogether. But I do think that he needs to be really careful being a Virgo rising with Pluto and Aquarius, because there can be a tendency of working to the point where it's like they're having health problems, or they're having digestional issues, psychological issues. Thankfully Saturn's coming off of his moon too. So I think that, I would just kind of remind him, like, don't feel like you have to be stuck in one place, and don't bite off more than you can chew. And definitely July, August, and December are the months where you're most likely to kind of see him doing those things. The good news is, though, is that, with Jupiter going back and forth over his midheaven, he can make some real progress in his career, and it can be really positive because it's also trining his Jupiter. So I think if it was a matter of maybe trying to find a position that's going to either have a more flexible schedule or something that's going to pay him better, it would be really nice to see Jupiter trine Jupiter and also his Saturn, and he gets into a position where there is like not as much stress, but it might require management of some kind. Jupiter in the 10th house sometimes does that. Hopefully that's helpful. Hope he gets a break. We've got Paula. Paula, what's up? I saw you want your reading, and I know that you had that new moon right along your ascendant, my girl. So I don't know if you were feeling that, but it's really good for your health. It's good for your beauty. You're welcome, MK. With a new moon and a Venus Cazimi here, this is bringing you like all of the creature comforts. Venus rules your 12th house. It's also a great time to be taking a picture of yourself with all these planets in Gemini in your first house. It's a time also where there is some kind of like renewal, or there is some kind of like new beginning. So you're going to hear for Sagittarius is, oh, it's in your relationship sector. Yes, but it's in your first house. So it's kind of getting back into the swing of having a better relationship with your body, feeling more comfortable in your skin, feeling more vibrant, more chatty, more mobile. And I think also for you, it's an interesting one because simultaneously it's trining Uranus. So it's about being like, okay, it's time to make some changes. It's time to kind of get moving and shaking. It might mean that there's more going on with your kids. It might mean that there's more going on with your creative endeavors. It might mean that you're kind of moving some stuff around in regards to your home because it is in your 4th house. The only challenge here is the square to Saturn. So all these Gemini risings are like, I want to travel. I want to get out there. I want to do this. Like there is a sense of needing something new, and they're being like really optimistic and kind of positive about some of these new habits or things that they're learning, or maybe you're just really focused on having like a positive mindset and just, kind of being on top of your health and your body and very self-focused. All of these energies this week, beginning this week, are going to start coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune. So it feels as if like you're like, I'm doing my thing, and then, then the boss calls and is like, actually, no, I need you to work Friday night. Or, no, I can't give you the time off. Or, you feel like people are kind of being kind of critical of you because you're very happy-go-lucky with all of these energies going through your first house. It is creating for you a grand mutable cross. So it's going to be a lot in regards to Saturn. So it's going to be like you going, I don't want to give my, I don't want to give my happiness away, or I don't want to let other people kind of bring me down, or I'm not going to, be putting up with people trying to limit me or trying to tell me what to do. So there can be a sense of pushing back against authority. You, I think, will probably do better because a lot of it is about the relationship to yourself. So it can be kind of polar opposite to what you're hearing for the Sag horoscopes. But there's a lot of telling other people, like, I know you need me at work, and telling your partner, I know you want time, but like I'm trying to do things that are going to be best for me and my well-being, my happiness, and also my body right now. So there's like a need to kind of put your hands out and not let people kind of push you around over the next couple of weeks, and like don't let other people disrupt your happiness. Besides that, some of the other stuff that's kind of going on in the background is we're also getting ready to have this Cazimi, which is important for Gemini and Gemini risings. And so when Mercury crosses your ascendant and then conjuncts the sun, this is a day where you might just be a little bit more so tapped in, especially at 24. And it looks like when that happens, it's starting to come into a square with your Pluto. So I see this as like not willing to put up with messiness at home, not wanting to be dealing with any dysfunction with family, not really wanting to be dealing with any power struggles. You might have kids calling you or family calling you, asking you, where's this, where's that? Can you help me? Can you get me there? And you're like, nope. This is a day that you also want to be mindful that it's really strong for setting intentions because it's connected to your first house, but also your third house. So you might have a great idea for like a website. You might have a great idea for something you want to write, or something that you want to post, or something that you want to be doing in regards to education or traveling. And Jupiter is kind of in the background right now in your 12th house. So it's kind of like the guardian angel transit. Still helping promote healing. It's still also possibly giving you a little bit of space while a partner is traveling. So there can be also some feelings with squares to Neptune that you're like, feeling lonely sometimes, or kind of positive and optimistic about some of these new beginnings that are going on. But you're like, well, where does this leave me in the future with my relationship or with my work? And I think that it's funny because like all the Gemini energy, it's like very like curious, and it doesn't want to be tied down. So you're going to be a little bit more resistant to, like I said, work, responsibility, parenting, duties. And if you're staying mobile, you're going to be able to, I think, kind of do more of what you want to do as long as you're not kind of getting pigeonholed to being at home or being at work. So if you start noticing that you're feeling kind of antsy, it's a good time to be like working out, going for bike rides, going for walks. It doesn't need to be anything like hardcore, but staying mobile is the key here, and being flexible when it comes to making changes, when it comes to work responsibility and home responsibility as well. Definitely take a picture of yourself with all these planets in your first house. That's really great for your appearance. And that new moon with Venus being there is saying that there is much more of like an integration of reflection, spiritual work, working with, intention setting or meditation when it comes to making your dreams a reality. It's also a very creative energy too. Venus rules your 5th house. So it's a good time for focusing on the things that you love and really trying to surround yourself with positive things, positive people, and not letting like the drag of like work or responsibilities kind of get you down. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Paula. All right, so we have now got my list, and let me see if anybody else snuck in here so I can update the other charts before we get on to everybody else. All right, so it looks like we got, let's see. All right, so it looks like I've got one more person to add. You're welcome, Paula. I hope you're doing well. Thank you, channel members. So funny, always at the beginning of the month, I'm like, yep, this is going to be the day. This is going to be the day we're going to hear from everyone. That's okay. I don't mind it. All right, so just got to add Ariel, who got in there. And then we'll get going. Is that the dog? I can hear him snoring in the other room. All right, let me pull up my list. You guys can't hear it, but I can hear it. All right, so we have got right. All right, so here's who I've got, just so you guys know. If you hear your name, you know I've got you. We've got Lauren, Ashley, Lisa, Frankie, Hiru, Miss Grace, Daniel, Kimberly, and Ariel. Okay, so just so you guys know, I've got you. We're gonna take Lauren, Ashley, and Lisa. So you guys are all on deck. So just a heads up, your readings are coming up. We're gonna start with Lauren. Let me pull up Lauren's question. If you don't mind, when you sign up for membership, does it start the day you sign up or regardless of every month of when you sign up? So if you sign up, it's that month. So if you sign up now, then you can get a reading, whenever Friday you want this month, and then you get it every month. So you can choose. If you want to get it the last week of a month and then the first week of the next month, you can do that. All right. So let's get going here. So Lauren says, can you do a Sinistry reading for me? I'm April 29th, 85, 11:59 p.m. in Texas. And she's got somebody who is July 15th, 79, 11:58 p.m. in Des Moines, Iowa. She says, I met someone at work who I have a huge crush on. I've spent the last 9 months slowly getting to know each other. Both of us are married. I'm wondering if our relationship will develop into a romantic relationship over the next year. Gotta love that Sag rising energy. Well, let's look at your chart really quick, Lauren. So Sag rising, you've got your sun in Taurus and you have got your moon in Virgo. Your descendant is Gemini, and it's ruled by Mercury. And right now, the North Node is on your Mercury. So it is bringing up the themes of relationship, partnerships, feeling impulsively drawn to communicating, connecting, relating to another person. And at the same time, also, you have got transits that are coming into your 7th house, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury. So it's enhancing the possibilities of being able to have a connection with another person, at least mentally, kind of connecting, and having options and choices. Okay. Now, some food for thought. You do have Neptune getting relatively close to your Venus. You are going to see over the next couple of years, Saturn and Neptune coming into conjunction with both your Venus and your Mercury. So there's definitely going to be some things changing, revolving around relationships and partnerships for sure. And you're going to have a number of really significant energies here. Probably the biggest thing that I'm thinking about will be the end of the year when you're having a Mars retrograde. That'll go into your 7th house. So there can be some changes in regards to relationships and partners, okay? Now, when we look at his chart, he is an Aries rising. Oh, so your Venus is on his ascendant. He's an Aries rising, Aries moon, sun in Cancer. And, all right, put these two charts together. And what do we have? Well, probably the thing that kind of piques my interest is that his sun and Venus sit in your 7th house. So this does represent kind of what you attract and what you bring in. So you can see, kind of partnership vibes there. Simultaneously also, he's got his moon really close to your Mercury. So, there is a lot of like stimulation going on between the two of you and like really kind of understanding each other and getting excited about communicating and connecting. He's also got his North Node pretty close to your moon. So you can feel like there's a good emotional relation happening there. And he's got Mars in Gemini, and it sits in your 6th. Technically, your whole sign's 7th. Just taking a look at his transits, okay? So he's in Aries rising, and he's experiencing South Node transits and eclipses in his 7th house, which means there's changes going on in regards to relationships. South Node Pluto can be some kind of temptation going on, or that there is kind of, a relationship breakdown that's happening, or kind of not feeling totally connected to another person as the North Node kind of kicks in his 1st house. His 7th house lord is Venus, and he's got Venus in Cancer, conjunct the sun. So this is somebody who may very well, like I'm assuming, is married, lives with another person, but Venus in the 4th house can have a tendency to have kind of like private romantic entanglements with people. Your North Node sits conjunct his, your Juno sits conjunct his North Node. So you're kind of like his work wife, quite literally, Juno, North Node, 6th house. The issue that I have with some of these aspects, probably the biggest issue that I have is that this is somebody who's definitely going through some challenges in a relationship. And so, even though Venus in Cancer is definitely somebody who can be really kind of committed and connected and sentimental, in a man's chart, the moon represents more of his wife and his partner, and Venus represents more kind of like the other woman, okay? And Venus and the moon are in a square to each other. So the women that he ends up with and the women that he's attracted to can kind of be very different. And obviously, the moon in Aries in the 1st house is very emotionally kind of reactive. There's a tendency to kind of, go very quickly towards what they're drawn to. And that moon opposes Pluto. So whoever he was going to be married to with the Pluto, moon, Venus square, it was like he was going to get married, and then that relationship was going to be very different than I think what he thought it was going to be. And that was most likely going to lead to him being like, okay, well, I have these kind of like emotional connections and these emotional affairs with Venus in the 4th house. Anyway, let's put your chart over his. And you've got Mercury and Venus on the ascendant. So, of course, there's this natural draw of wanting to communicate and talking to each other. There is also a sun conjunction to your Vesta and your Chiron. So he can be really kind of like nurturing and you know, helping you feel wanted, making you feel good. You guys also have like a North Node Chiron Lilith conjunction, so that's kind of brewing there as well. So there can be a really strong kind of like physical pull. And your Mars sits on his Juno. So I don't know what you guys have like spoken about. If there's been any like conversations revolving around, well, we're married, or, you know, would we, you know, do anything outside of our relationship? I'd be curious because you guys both have Mars in Gemini. And being that he's ruled by Mars, and that Mars in Gemini conjunct Juno can be an indication that he may be married 2 times, especially because it squares Saturn. And he's got Pluto in his 7th house. And what's interesting is that, you know, if the 7th house is the first marriage where he's got Pluto and it squares Venus, and then the second potential union would be the 9th house, which has a Neptune-Mars opposition, can kind of indicate that there could be another relationship that comes in where something is kind of beginning before he actually terminates the marriage. Obviously, people have free will, but I do see that. I guess really what it comes down to is like, you know, the Sinistry is great and everything. You know, it'll definitely tell you how you guys kind of relate to each other, but the composite chart's really going to tell you what's going to happen. So your composite chart, you have a Aquarius rising with a sun in Gemini. Look at this Gemini stellium you guys have. Mars, Mercury, Sun, Lilith, Moon. So there's definitely a fixation with each other. There is a real interest in communicating, you know, talking, chatting, maybe texting. And you're going to want to watch what's going on with Uranus and Saturn with this chart. Well, there's some stuff happening. Look at this. Uranus is conjunct your guys' composite Venus at 24. So it's about a hidden kind of like attraction towards one another. I feel like I would be really mindful of what's going to happen in mid-July when Mars and Uranus come into conjunction with your composite Venus, because it can be a make or break situation where something could happen. But there can also be a sense of being like, no, we can't do this. We got to stop doing this, or we got to break it off. Or maybe people at work kind of being like, you guys are getting a little friendly. You'll have a Mercury retrograde in your 7th house in August. And then you will have a Mars retrograde in your 7th house in December through the new year. In fact, the Mars retrograde is going to be right on top of your guys' composite Vesta and Juno opposed Pluto, which means if you guys do end up kind of having something go down here over the summer, I would anticipate that it would go until about maybe the end of the year. And then when Mars starts turning retrograde, it could possibly be something in December going into January that's like, you know, maybe we shouldn't be working together anymore, you know, or maybe we can't do this anymore because, you know, there is potential of it really disrupting our marriage. Mars retrograde over Juno. So you guys would have conversations about that. It is going to be more difficult with Mars retrograde in your guys' composite 7th in opposition to Pluto in your whole sign 1st house, that there can be a lot of power struggles and a lot of drama. I'm just going to tell you this, you know, going forward. He's got the chart of somebody who may never really fully be satisfied with Pluto opposes Moon square Venus. And men who have Venus in Cancer in the 4th house, especially if it rules their 7th house, they may entertain the idea of other people. Usually it's like emotionally, but if they live with a woman, they know that they always have to go back home to that woman because, well, Sun and Venus are in the 4th. So, yeah, there is a tendency to attract very intense, kind of passionate, sometimes even like really sexy partners. But when it comes down to it, he'll always go back home to what's safe, secure, and he feels kind of at odds with, you know, wanting 2 different things. So even though you guys can have this, you know, it could turn into something, it can get really messy at the end of the year, especially if other people at work know that something's going on. And also because of that retrograde over your Juno, it would be like the 2 of you guys being like, okay, is this potentially going to like really disrupt our marriages? Which, I mean, I don't judge, I've heard it all, but I could see that being a situation where if you guys really wanted to be together and if it was something serious, you'd realize like maybe we cannot continue on with these relationships if this is something that we're going to continue to pursue, you know? Hopefully that's helpful. Definitely some colorful stuff. I would say be careful with getting too disenchanted with relationships right now. Because you have, you know, Saturn that's getting ready to come into conjunction with your Venus, because Jupiter is going to be in your 7th house. There's the option of another person But the square to Saturn in the 4th house means that you have to deal with the past first, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got, who else is next? We've got Ashley, and then Lisa, and then Frankie. Let's pull up Ashley. Ashley says 228.92 in Houston at 7:41. So you're Virgo rising, sun in Pisces, moon in Capricorn. I'm really excited for this Jupiter in Gemini in my 10th house. Can you give me any insight on how to take full advantage of this energy? Also new to astrology, I have 29-degree ascendant. Any insight of what could be appreciated? Additional info, I'm a tarot reader and spiritualist in the digital space. Help, I feel a powerful shift. I just want to know where to focus my energy. Thanks in advance. Well, I have you at 28 degrees in change. So depending on what program or software you're using, yours could say 29. But having ascendant at a critical degree means that there is something that you're really learning to work on, hone in on, or complete in this lifetime, basically. Okay, so when we think of Virgo, health, service, communication, fixing things, organizing things, perfecting things, that is the focus. So that means that there should be a pretty significant aspect connecting to your 6th house or connecting to your natal Mercury. And you have that. Sun's in the 6th house, Mercury's in the 6th house, Mercury's, in its fall in Pisces. So there is like this sense of, well, I'm here to be of service, right? I'm here to help people, 6th house, Pisces, through divination, through spirituality, through using your intuition, right? Helping and healing. Divination is very much connected to Mercury. So that's the other way of looking at it. Mercury can be things you do with your hands. So it can be reading cards, reading shells, assessing and using your intuition to give like direction. Jupiter goes through your 10th house every 12 years. So you may want to think back to what was going on in 2012 because that was the last time you had this transit. But Jupiter does bring expansion and positive things. Now, planets behave differently in different signs, okay? So because Jupiter is traditionally associated with Sagittarius, it's going to be in its opposite sign. So because it's moving through its opposite sign, it doesn't always have as much strength. That's the one thing that I would say to take into consideration. Jupiter in Gemini can have a tendency to do too many things at one time, or it can multitask too much. So you want to be mindful, even though you are Virgo rising, you're a late degree rising, so you may resonate with some of the Libra rising stuff, because you're actually going to see Jupiter not really fully move into your 10th house until next year. So I know this chart well. I got a Libra rising at 0 degrees, so I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on. Jupiter's going to go through your 9th house this year, which means you're focusing on either teaching courses, publishing, learning, traveling. You're more optimistic about what the future holds. A new teacher can come into your life this year. Jupiter rules traditionally your 4th house. So it may mean that there is periods where you're spending time out of the home. Can your career expand? Yeah, you can see that because technically by whole sign it's going to be there. Plus, you're going to have a Mars retrograde in your 10th house, so there is going to be a lot of like redirecting something about your work this year. But Jupiter, both in August and in December, is going to be at odds with Saturn. Okay, so where Jupiter in the 9th wants to get on flights, it wants to write books, it wants to teach, it wants to learn. Saturn in the 6th house is saying, yeah, but you have work to do. You have a schedule to maintain. You have your health to think about. You have a pet to take care of. You have to focus on your habits and organization. So there is some sense of there being growth in the Gemini area of your chart, but it's coming at a cost. And so while Jupiter can be super optimistic and kind of anything is possible, Saturn is like, be realistic, set a timeline, like show up, do the work. So really what it's trying to get you to do is better manage your schedule, not overbook yourself. It's also about really being more so focused on, I think, learning the necessary skills or getting certifications or possibly doing some kind of training or shifting something about your faith, your philosophy that can help you really hone in on your talents and like help you really help people to the best of your abilities, right? So it's interesting because this is all happening right before Saturn hits your Mercury next year. And Mercury is your chart ruler. So next year, when Saturn hits your Mercury at a 23, it may mean that that's when you start taking more clients. That's when you are also, considering offering new services. Maybe that's when you are working a new schedule or you're working in a new office space or you have an influx where there's a lot more clients. I think it's a lot about like leveling up in your work and maybe approaching it in a much more professional way. Not that you're not professional, but like there's going to be a sense of really kind of having much more of like a polished either look or feel to your image or like really like learning your stuff this year basically. Mercury rules your body too. So it can be about where you're learning not to like overschedule yourself and burn out, because if you don't do that, and if you're not taking periods of time for like rest and integration or travel, then, all year you're going to be working hard. And then you may find like, I'm just feeling like really exhausted when Saturn hits your Mercury. Most likely you'll have better boundaries also with other people, can be relationships or clients. But traditionally, as a Virgo rising, Jupiter going into your 10th house means you're going to get more recognition. People are going to see you. You're going to be able to expand more. Maybe you're going to get some kind of honors of some kind. You might be getting more appreciation or approval from family members as well, because Jupiter rules your 4th house. It could mean that you're also doing a lot of work from home, but then you're going out into the world and maybe considering courses or like retreats or other things. And Jupiter also rules your 7th house of, your marketplace. So it means that you may get more visibility or more traction. People are seeing what you're doing and it's bringing in more clients. But I just really want to reiterate, by technical Placidus terms, Jupiter will not be in your 10th house until next year. So will you see some of it? Maybe. But I think some of the best is actually going to be coming for you closer to June of next year, which is a good thing because like Jupiter's exalted in Cancer. It's going to hit your South Node, which means the changes that are happening are good changes, and it's going to trine your Sun. So I think a lot of this is like learning more about how to expand in your skills and also like marketing and learning that it can't be all work and no play, and really developing a schedule that you feel like you can kind of like really stick to. And that's really how this is going to go down for you for the next year. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Go and look into Saturn transiting your Mercury, because that's going to be a pretty big transit for your chart if you're ruled by Mercury. And Saturn and Neptune sitting in your 7th house, there's going to be new dynamics in terms of how you're kind of connecting with like clients and other people. All right, so we have got Lisa. Pull up Lisa's chart here. Lisa says, what are my current challenges, lessons, and blessings working with the energies? Good question. January 1475. She's a Leo rising with a sun in Capricorn and a moon in Aquarius. So what's working for you and what's not working for you? That is really the question. I think that what's working for you right now, where there's a lot of positivity, is all of these planets moving through your 11th house. As a Leo rising, there's a huge focus right now on your goals, what you're hoping to achieve, your desires. I see the 11th house is kind of like the party that we have on Friday night after working all week, or, the wish that we have when we blow out a birthday cake candle. Something that you're really hoping for. And with Jupiter being in the 11th house, it's really happy there because it's really helping you focus on how to have more fun, how to connect with new groups, how to network with people, how to expand your social life. So this is all, there's a lot of good things going on here for like the next 2 or 3 weeks. All of this is going to square Saturn, which means it's trying to get you out of your comfort zone and be open to making changes with who you socialize with and what your goals are. The other thing that I really love also is that there's going to be 2 full moons in Capricorn in the next month. So we're going to have the first one around the 21st. And that one's going to be at 1 degree. So, you know, as a Leo rising, you're going to hear, oh, changes with work, health, and habits. Okay, sure. But you're a Capricorn. So it's literally going to be work, health, and habits, right? So I would be paying attention to that. There's going to be a lot changing with your schedule or staff in some regard. And then you're going to have the second one that's going to happen a month later, and that's going to be around the 21st of July. And that one, to me, seems a little bit more critical because it's at 29 degrees, very close to your sun, which is your chart ruler. Lisa says, I got a big promotion coming off Jupiter in the 10th. I wasn't expecting. That is challenging the hell out of me. Also, 5-year on and off relationship ended. So sorry to hear about the relationship stuff. Perhaps maybe that was the Pluto retrograde. But interesting that you have Jupiter and all these planets in your 11th house and you're socializing or people are celebrating you and you're working with teams. And then you have 2 full moons that's very much focused on, well, who am I, right? So for a Leo rising, it's more about your health, habits, and your routine. But for a Capricorn sun, it's like doing a lot of healing, a lot of clearing, a lot of purging, like focusing on your goals. And that Jupiter transit, it's going to be trining your Mercury, Venus, Moon in the 7th house. So it's like a year where there's going to be lots of connecting with other people and like spending time with friends and getting out and socializing. And like that's still opening the door to romantic relationships if that's something that you do in fact want. Like it will still be very possible. What is challenging right now, and I think you're going to see more of this in a couple days, is going to be when Mars goes into Leo around the 8th. It will immediately start coming into a square with Pluto. So Mars in the 10th house, working hard, right? Feeling very confident, very determined. There is like a sense of also like really wanting to kind of stand out from other people. It's very competitive. Mars will square your ascendant and it will also square Pluto. So, you know, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, there is like a sense of there being tension between, you know, you and other people at work. And maybe you're just feeling really assertive and ready to get things going and other people, you know, are not as responsive to that. Watch for some of the power struggles that can come up, especially because in your chart, it's going to create a grand fixed cross with your natal Uranus. But that's a quick moving transit. And then something else also that I think is kind of worthy of mentioning is like as a Capricorn, when all of these planets begin to start coming into a square with Saturn, you're going to feel it. And I feel like maybe it's just about getting outside of your comfort zone and socializing again and being around other people and not being so heavily enmeshed in a relationship. Does 7th house Pluto mean more Plutonian types of relationships and cycles? Yeah, it's not technically in your 7th house, but you're feeling the effects of it already. It's close enough. It does mean that you can be bringing in people who have really strong Scorpio placements, Pluto placements, 8th house placements. But Pluto is difficult for you because you have Scorpio intercepted in your 4th house. So there's that. And also by sign, this is the opposition to you, you know? So it means that you're dealing with people who are like, they're going through drama. They're going through major transformations. They're going through intensity. And you can bring people in. I've seen I've seen so many Leo risings, early degree Leo risings that have early degree planets in Aquarius that are like bringing people in that they become obsessed with. And then they find out they're married or that they have some kind of secret or that they have, I mean, it's like weird stuff is happening. So be mindful. Yeah, mirrors, exactly. 7th house is literally your shadow self. So you can be bringing people in that can be reflecting parts of yourself that can be kind of like taboo and things you're, you know, kind of attracted to that lures you. But it can also be, it can come with traps and there can be secrets and other things that are going on. And then finally, the other thing is that you're still in the middle of your Chiron return. Okay. So Chiron's going to go retrograde here in a little bit. It's going to hit 23 and then it's going to retrograde and it's going to come back. So in the fall, Chiron retrograde at a 20 is going to be lots of changes maybe to your belief, your philosophy. It is very close to your midheaven, so it can be that you are going through positive changes with your career, but you're like, I'm having to be more assertive and I'm having to put myself out there. I only bring that up because, well, it's been activated with the eclipses. You had an eclipse there. You have a highly aspected Chiron. Chiron squares your sun. So there's something about learning how to be more assertive with other people and not just like being the fix-it person. And it also squares your Saturn. So it's definitely bringing up this sense of healing the wound revolving around traveling alone, being independent, not being afraid to tell other people what you think or what you believe in. And it can also really kind of bring in some kind of like physical meets spiritual activities that can help you heal. So it can mean like yoga. It can mean, traveling alone and going places, and that heals issues that you have with, being overly dependent on other people. That can kind of be a theme as well. But yeah, I think that those are the things that really kind of come to mind. There's just going to be so much support in other people and groups that this is going to be a year where you're going to really want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and getting out there and connecting with other people and like letting other people support you and really nurture those friendships. So that way you're learning how to kind of like rebuild who you are. And with those 2 full moons, pay attention to what changes at work and also your health and habits. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Lisa. We have got Frankie, right? Is that right? I want to make sure I'm not just calling out names. Okay. We got Frankie, Hiru, and then Miss Grace. You guys are in the queue. Let's pull up Frankie. You're welcome. Frankie is a Libra rising, sun in Taurus, and moon in Virgo. And Frankie says, I would like to know the energy of this weekend and the weekend of the 21st of this month. Do you see physical sexy time happening around those times? Is there a possible pregnancy that could happen? Going to be traveling to see my guy friend who lives 20 minutes away, who I have known since we were teenagers. And there is going to be some sexy time. Thank you, Candace. You're welcome. All right, so let's see. So we've got, you want to look at the weekend of the 21st and this weekend. Okay, so it's Friday, so this is the weekend. So what do we got going on here? Well, so sexy time is going to be correlated to both your 8th house and also your 5th house. So where is the moon right now? Well, the moon's going through Cancer. So we're going to see that the moon in Cancer for the next day or so is going to be sextiling planets in your 8th house. So that's a trigger. We're also going to be seeing that Mars, which does very well in the 8th house, by the way, is getting ready to go into your 8th house of sexy time and pleasure. And it will be coming into conjunction with Mercury, which is literally about bed pleasures. So yeah, I could definitely see that today, tomorrow, that being an emphasis. And Mars is going to be in your 8th house for the next 6 weeks. So there's definitely sexy time energy there. The one thing that I would say, though, is that in terms of pregnancy, you're going to need to see something getting triggered from Uranus. Now, Uranus is close to your sun, so that could be enough. I would say like shocking surprise, unexpected pregnancy is going to be more like mid-July when Mars conjuncts Uranus. That's possible. Or Mars trining, Pluto, which is in your 4th house, but that can be about motherhood. So yeah, once Mars goes into your 8th house, that is possible because the square to Pluto is kind of like the testing the waters. Could it happen? Could it not? That intensity. And then maybe when, Mars is squaring, the Mars square Saturn makes me feel like that's about preventing pregnancy. And that's going to be beyond the dates that you gave me, but possibly around 4th of July, that's more being cautious. The weekend of the 20th to the 21st, Moon trine Mars is good on the 21st. As a general rule of thumb, when the moon's going through the 5th house, that's good for sexy time. So that's going to be like the 23rd through the 25th. I think Mars conjunct Venus is interesting as well, because you're Venus and the other person is Mars. And that's going to be trining your natal Uranus, which is your 5th house ruler. So you've got a couple placements here. I would say be careful because you're kind of playing with fire, because you're going to have a full moon in your 5th house. That's going to be around mid-August, and it's in your 5th house of children and pregnancy, and it's going to square Uranus. So that could definitely happen there if you're not careful. And that's right when Venus is on your moon. So it might be like, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to happen, and it happened. So you can't just predict pregnancy looking at transits. It's a lot more complicated than that. Something else that you can do is you can also look at your progressed chart. So for example, these are your secondary progressions. You're a Libra rising. You have the, the Sun and Venus in conjunction. So that's interesting because that's joining up. And then you've got the moon that is in Scorpio. So Uranus or Saturn still rules your 5th house here. Actually, you know what? Let me go back to this really quick, because that's a different location. There we go. Okay. So this is your progressed chart for Lansing, so your Scorpio rising. So your progressions going into the next month, you've got Venus conjuncting the Sun, and you've got Jupiter as the ruler of your 5th house. Okay, so I like to look at what's happening with the moon and what's happening with the 5th house Lord. So Jupiter is your 5th house Lord. So look at what's going to happen here. You're going to have Jupiter come into conjunction with Venus and Mars, okay? So you are Mars, other people are Venus, and Jupiter is there, which is about pregnancy. So August, that's definitely a trigger, is going to be August. And Venus is conjuncting the Sun, so it can mean that there is something new that's getting ready to emerge about your status. And this will square Saturn. So it can also mean that there's some question as to what's going on with the romantic relationship. Are they in? Are they ready? Are you guys on the same page? And then in September, you have an eclipse that's going to be in your progressed 5th house, which can be about pregnancy, square Jupiter, and Jupiter's on your Sun, Venus. So big status change stuff. And then finally, you are also going to see your progressed moon is going to change signs, and it's going to go into Sagittarius in October. And that is also going to be a change of sorts. And then eclipses and retrogrades in your 5th house. So I would just say definitely, yes, I see the dates that you're talking about. There can be romantic time, but my eyes are on, well, what's going on in August? That seems to be a bigger kind of focus in terms of what's kind of happening with both your transits, but also your progressed chart, right? And with Saturn coming in opposition with your moon, some people would say that that's not necessarily an indication that there would be a pregnancy. But I kind of feel like with Uranus that's still squaring Saturn and that full moon, that there could be something that can happen very suddenly and unexpectedly if you're trying. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so we have, let's see, we're going to have Hiru, and then we have Patty and Daniel. Miss Grace. Miss Grace as well. Sorry, guys, I've got 2 lists that I'm working off of. You're welcome. All right, so let's pull up Hiru. All right. Hiru says, I am July 15th, 94. And that is at 7:36 a.m. Okay. Now living in London. What to expect in love, relationship, career in the coming months? Feel like nothing is happening. Well, let's see which one's going to be most impacted at the moment. So something that I would say is love, like falling in love, dating, kind of getting to know people. That's more your 5th house. That's going to be ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is coming into conjunction with your Mars. So that is an indication that there can be opportunities for, connecting with people out in the world, at work, but also it's going to be socially as soon as Jupiter goes into your 11th house. We'll look at that. Your 7th house is ruled by Saturn. You are still currently in your Saturn's return. So perhaps maybe that's why you're kind of feeling like there's like a little bit of a delay that's going on with your relationship stuff. There's 2 different things going on. On one hand, Jupiter is going to spend most of this year hanging out in your 10th house. So it can expand your career, especially when it hits Mars. This may mean that there's lots of growth within your career. There's new opportunities. There could be new leadership roles. Maybe you're connecting with new people socially and you're networking that can bring you opportunities to be able to make headway in your work. Uranus also is still kind of dancing around your south node. So there's this feeling of being like, okay, do I want to stay with something? Do I want to make a change? Things can also feel kind of like unpredictable and you're kind of like resistant to having stability at work with Uranus on your south node. There's like a sense of wanting to break free and kind of getting impatient sometimes with things that can happen. Granted, Uranus is now moving away from the south node, so things can feel a little bit more stable now. And you're still, like I said, in your Saturn's return. So something that's going to happen during your Saturn's return is that Saturn is retrograding back and it's going to come back to about 12 degrees. So you're going to see in the next month that Saturn will begin its retrograde and it's going to come back. And it looks like right around November, it is going to hit 12 degrees again, which means that that is the tail end of your Saturn's return. So Saturn in the 7th house creates delays sometimes with relationships. So there is a need to kind of work through karma in relationships. And Saturn will square Jupiter. So it's saying that, okay, you're trying to focus on commitments and, relationships, but, you're like, okay, I'm just meeting people and we're just hanging out and we're just kind of friends. Really, I think your 5th house Lord being in the 11th house this year means that you really want to be focusing on going out and socializing and meeting people and not going into it thinking, oh, I have to find a committed relationship. I have to find my partner, right? This year, you're going to be turning 30. So you'll be in an annual perfection year 7 all year ruled by Saturn. So that means that like your Saturn return completing, that also means that, Jupiter square Saturn is really saying that it's trying to push you outside of your comfort zone, trying to get you to focus on platonic relationships, maybe meeting people who might introduce you or set you up with other people. Because in your relationships with Uranus with Uranus ruling your descendant and also your natal Uranus placed in the 6th house, like there is a need to be willing to make changes to your schedule, your routine, where you're working, how you're working. You may meet your partner through coworkers or going out after work. That's another possibility with Uranus in your 6th house. Another way that you could possibly meet or connect with them also is like joining a gym or some kind of like professional group or association. Because wherever your 7th house Lord is where you meet them. So 6th house could be you're going to the grocery store, you're going to the laundromat, you're going to the doctor, you're going to the gym. These places are more likely to promote actually meeting someone. So I think with Jupiter in your 11th house this year, trine your 7th, it means you want to go and be places where there's going to be groups of people where you can socialize and make new friends and, give you the opportunity to be able to meet new people. Career stuff, though, you're going to want to watch that full moon in August because it's going to square Uranus in your 10th house. So a status change can come, or a new job opportunity can kind of present itself. Maybe you're just feeling like a little, things feel very slow and very limited when you're in your Saturn's return. And when you have Saturn in Pisces, a lot of this is about making your dreams a reality. So you want to be kind of meditating on, when I meet that person, what do they feel like? What emotions am I experiencing, being with that match? What signs do I want to look for? Meditations on love and relationships can be big. Also, your Saturn's on the cusp of this 8th house, so it's going to be about vulnerability and intimacy and kind of like opening up a little bit and not being too closed off from other people. You have Saturn square Mars, so there can be this like sense of being like, no, I'm really busy, I've got a lot going on, or I'm working, or I've got other responsibilities. Like, create space and time for somebody to come in. And a lot of this, I think, is about opening up and being vulnerable. You've got Venus in Virgo in your first house in opposition to Saturn with Chiron. So there's also this feeling of being like, I've been hurt before, I don't want to be hurt again, I need some space, or I'm a little unsure. Or you can be dealing with partners who are exhibiting that behavior. So with Saturn in opposition to Venus, there's like this lesson that is, okay, I'm not going to chase people who are wounded, who haven't healed their issues, or if somebody, kind of goes silent or they go rogue on me for a little bit, I'm not going to take it personally. I'm going to give them their space and let them work through it. And that's also kind of built into your Saturn return. Saturn opposed Venus, square Mars. And it can mean that they're like, I was going through family stuff, or I was moving, or, things like that. That can be challenging for them when it comes to kind of getting their act together and like actually really being available. But because you have your 7th house Lord in your 6th, and you're in a 7th house year, I would say be really paying attention to what changes are going on with work or with your schedule or with coworkers, because a pretty significant relationship can pop in your 7th house year. So socializing is going to be the key. Even if you get a little restless at work, try to kind of stay the path. And also simultaneously, you've got the South Node coming in conjunction with your moon. So there can be lots of emotional fluctuations. There can be lots of financial fluctuations. You may also feel subconsciously like it's time to like purge and get rid of things at home. The moon is our emotional body. It's about our home. It's about our relationship to our roots, our mothers, our family. So with the South Node moon, there can also be this feeling that there is some kind of distance with some of these people, or that maybe there's changes that are going on the home front for either you or your family as well. And that's going to get triggered with an eclipse next year. So right now is the clearing, and then you're going to see, next spring when we have the eclipses that are taking place, it's going to oppose your moon. So there's going to be lots of changes as Saturn continues to go through your 8th house for the next 2 years. But yeah, Saturn in the 7th house, generally delays with relationships. That's pretty common. Work used to be stable, and there's a lot changing. It's giving me anxiety. So moon in Libra in the 2nd house, breath work, breathing exercises to help you feel grounded. Breath will help ground you. And anything that's about balance and flexibility, or even yoga, that can be really helpful for you as well, to kind of help with the emotional fluctuations that come from that transit. All right, so we got Miss Grace. Let's see what we've got from Miss Grace. If you guys haven't already liked the stream for me, give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. All right, so for Miss Grace, I've got you here July 9th, 71. Libra rising, sun in Cancer, and your moon is in Aquarius. You're welcome. She says, please tell me what my chart says about my work, career. My life and closest relationships seem to evolve and revolve around the jobs I've ever had. What, if anything, in my chart explains this? Well, 1973, got it. Thank you. I don't know where I got 71 from, but there we go. All right, so 73, Libra rising, Sun in Cancer, Moon in Scorpio. So she's asking, what is the deal with relationships and everything revolving around my career? Okay. My life and closest relationships seem to revolve around all the jobs I've ever had. So first of all, your sun is in the 10th house. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's because that, you meet everybody at work, but where the sun is does represent where you're very goal-oriented, where you're super focused when it comes to your purpose. Sun in the 10th house has the archetype of the caretaker, the leader, the boss, the parent, right? All of that stuff. And the Sun in Cancer in the 10th house is kind of like home and work and family kind of merge, right? So there are things that, you're taking the 10th house of career status and reputation, and you're seeing it through the lens of Cancer. So there is some kind of mix between friends, home, work, and family. Now your relationships, 7th house is ruled by Mars. And it's also connected to your 2nd house of money. Okay, so because Mars rules your 2nd house and it's in the 7th, making money, working with a partner. And Mars in this chart trines Venus, your Venus. So wherever Venus is where you are. So you got the Sun and you got Venus in the 10th house, which means you're like, yes, boss, working, connect, professional stuff. And Venus trines Mars. So there is some aspect between you, relationships, making money, and working. So there is, and it's harmonious. Venus trine Mars it's exact, so it's wonderful. So that's nice. The challenge though is that your Sun squares Mars. And this means that you can be dealing with, some people that can be kind of patient, impatient, forceful, needy, kind of combative sometimes relationship-wise. And you're like, this is driving me crazy that, I have some people that are my family, or I'm in a relationship with them, or I live with them, or there's some kind of connection where there's like a blurred line. And the Sun can be about our ego or our goals. And the friction that can come from, you being the person who's like the way shower, the leader, the manager, whatever, and other people being like, just don't tell me what to do, let me get it done. So it can cause a little bit of friction when it comes to relationships because of those lines that are blurred. On the other side of the coin also, your Sun squares Uranus. So you're Uranian. It means that you're kind of different, unconventional, you like to do things your own way. And you were born with Uranus in opposition to Chiron and Mars. It means that you were born with this pretty intense cardinal square. And when you got planets in the cardinal or the angular houses, your life is very active. So you're going through your Chiron return right now. So it's maybe you're more sensitive and more in tune to relationship issues more than usual in your 7th house. It's opposing Uranus, which means it drives you a little batty and it makes you feel like you're out of balance with the relationship with yourself. And sometimes you're like overstimulated with just everything going on with friendships or partnerships. And it's also squaring your Sun. So I kind of feel inclined to tell you were born with this, so you may navigate it a little bit better, but there can be this feeling with the eclipses, the retrograde, all the stuff that's been going on in Aries that you're like, I am just overstimulated dealing with somebody else. And you should naturally feel these peak periods, like springtime, there's always a lot going on with relationships. Summertime, there's always a lot going on with work and career. You're getting into like Libra season in the fall, and then there's more focus on what's going on with yourself. And a T-square like this, not everything can go at one time. So there's a season to your chart where it's other people, work and career, than you. And the Sun, which is you, your goals, your, energy, your ego, it's in a square to both Uranus and also Mars, which means you have a tendency to be like, okay, this is my goal, this is what I'm trying to achieve. And there can be friction that can come from that, which causes some relationship wounding. And also it makes you a little batty with the square to Uranus. I have some of the same placements, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But there is a pretty strong connection and correlation that all roads seem to kind of lead back to, your 10th house. currently right now, Pluto's going through Aquarius. It's opposing your Mercury. And so there can be a lot of stress happening in terms of, Mercury in the 10th house, communication, leadership. And Pluto in the 4th house is kind of like intensity, major changes and transformations emotionally with your inner world or at home, and how that is creating some pressure in regards to how you're relating to people at work. So if you do have some crossover between your private life and your home life, and things are kind of getting intense in your private life, then it can be harder to kind of keep the peace and like stay cool with people when you're at work and you're like, maybe some of that stuff is like carrying over a little bit. Not to mention the fact that you're a Cancer with a Scorpio moon. So very, very sensitive, very emotional. And sometimes it can be a little bit hard when you got that Scorpio moon in the 2nd house to like let things go. But the sun, I think, in the 10th house is this tendency to want to kind of like manage and oversee things. And sometimes people don't like that. The square to Mars and Chiron in the 7th. They don't like being told what to do, or that creates some kind of wounding, or they don't feel, they feel like you're superior to them, and that there can be some like dynamics where they don't feel like they have as much freedom or as much control. When in reality, it's like, okay, needing to separate, work from the relationship and not letting them impact one another, right? That's been very active recently with the eclipse, with the retrograde, and Mars now is at 29 degrees. So it's reactivating the eclipse that we had in April of last year. So there's more of that intensity that's kind of coming up. You're definitely going to see with Mars going retrograde over your Mercury, I think at the end of this year, that might be a change in direction where like somebody who you're close to or you're in a relationship or you're partnered with, there may be some changes where you guys may actually not be, or choosing to not work together as often or as closely, and somebody may be kind of like removing themselves from that dynamic because there are such strong emotions and things going on that's impacting you in your private life, that they may change directions in that sense. Anyway, you'll see that because it's going to go right over your Mercury. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I've got Daniel, Kimberly, and then Ariel. Let's see. You're welcome. All right, I want to make sure this is the right Daniel. Yeah. 32584 in Phoenix, Arizona. Gemini rising, sun in Aries, moon in Capricorn. No worries. Sorry, I didn't get to type much because I wanted to lock in the reading. You can send me your question. Okay, general love and romance guidance would be great. We're not going to have any problems in that department with all these planets crossing over your ascendant. Currently single, broke up with my boyfriend in February. All right. Well, have done healing, started dating others, but no connection I've had compared to that one so far. So just some food for thought. Your 7th house is Sag, so it's ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is going to have quite an impact on your relationships. Jupiter will be in your sign this year, which means you can attract people to you more easily. Granted, it won't cross your ascendant until next year, so some relationships might be kind of like private or kind of like backburnered, or you're still feeling them out this year while you're healing. The 12th house is all about healing. We're friendly but distant, closed off Scorpio. When we broke up, we talked about revisiting the relation later on. Is there an opportunity for reconciliation, or should I move on? I would say that you're majorly in your healing phase, and even planets in the 12th house is your partner's 6th house. So it can mean that it's just timing is kind of off. But you're going to see when there is a really strong transit to either involving Jupiter or with Jupiter, there could be a reconnection. My guess is that probably when Saturn is retrograding over your Venus, so that'll be in October, And when you have the Mercury retrograde in Sag, it is possible that that could be a reconnection time. So Mercury will turn retrograde in Sagittarius. It looks like that's going to be happening right around the end of November. I would say from the end of November to mid-December is when it's most likely if there is a reconnection. Because you are Mercury, it's happening in your opposite sign. And simultaneously, it's going to be opposed Jupiter. So that person may naturally kind of come back to you in the fall. Could it be sooner? Maybe. It depends on their astrology. But I'm saying this also because this is when Saturn will go direct on your Venus. Usually when Saturn transits your Venus, there's karmic stuff going on in relationships. You got Venus in Pisces, which is a great placement, but it does, with the Saturn transit, represent sacrifice and being alone and taking space. I think with most of the planets, at least for the next month in your 12th house, there is this sense of being like, who am I? What do I need? What do I need to be working on? How do I need to be healing before I move on to the next person? You will also have a Mercury retrograde in August. That's going to happen. That's going to be in your 5th house of romance. And 4th house. Yeah, it's still your 5th house ruler. So I really feel like maybe you're going to date till the end of the summer. And you're going to kind of see what else is out there. And you may be surprised because the eclipse that is going to happen in the fall, it's going to be taking place in your 5th house of romance, true love, with a Mercury Cazimi. So this means that, after a summer of kind of dating and kind of feeling out what's out there, you may have met somebody that you really like, but you may also realize, okay, I had fun, but, now I think I kind of know more of what I want. And, maybe I'm considering, kind of checking in with the past and seeing if I can reconnect with someone. That also is going to be trining Jupiter. That's your 7th house lord. And maybe it's about becoming friendly with that person and kind of getting back on track and kind of like communicating and connecting with them a little bit more. Difficult for Aries, man, with the North Node going through your sign. It's all about you being independent, being on your own, healing yourself. Chiron is in conjunction to your Mercury, so it means that you're really focusing on surrounding yourself with people who are building you up and making you feel strong and confident and being active with other people and not being afraid to be alone. While simultaneously you have South Node eclipses that are in opposition to your sun. So that means that, lots of relationship changes. I mean, that was pretty much in the cards. You factor that in with Neptune squaring your ascendant and your descendant, and then Saturn coming into the square. I think this is a wonderful summer with Jupiter in your 1st house to be like, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to meet people, I'm going to travel, I'm going to have fun, I'm not going to be afraid to be alone, I'm going to have experiences, I'm going to make new friends. And at the end of summer, if you're feeling like, okay, I'm still wanting to connect, then I would say that may be an entry point to start connecting and communicating with people more. You may be very sensitive with this next full moon in Capricorn because it's going to be right on top of your Neptune. So there may be this sense of being like, why am I not hearing from them? Where did they go? I'm afraid I'm never going to talk to them again. Like, try to talk any of those feelings off of the ledge. And don't allow yourself to become too idealistic about a new potential romantic partner because there can be a sense of seeing what you want to see. And I think that, there's definitely an opportunity during the Mercury retrograde in Sag. That's going to be an interesting one because this is quite literally about you reconnecting and reevaluating and then asking yourself, are we still a good match for each other? I've grown a lot since we've been together. I've had a lot of experiences. I've met people. Like, is this still what I want? You might reconnect to that person and you might kind of feel like maybe I'm on a different page. So there's a lot of opportunities for you with eclipses in your 5th house and Jupiter in your 1st house. And if you put yourself out there, people will be drawn to you with Jupiter in your sign, especially the next couple of weeks with Jupiter and Venus and Mercury in your sign. Let people come to you, Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you, giving you some insight. All right, so we have got Kimberly. Welcome. All right, let's see. 215, 1960. Oh, I think I have the other chart actually. Let's see. Maybe not. Let me plug that person in. 2/15/1960. p.m. Oh no, that's your chart. What am I doing? Here we go. 2/15/1960. Around 11 a.m. Okay, let's see if I got this right. I'm just reading this back now. Okay, so I've got Kimberly, who's a Pisces rising, Sun in Leo, and Moon in Scorpio. And we're taking a look at a Sinistry reading. So she is connecting with Mr. X, 2/15/1960, around 11 a.m. in Winchester, Mass. Okay. So she says, separated in 2016 and since divorced, but continuing alimony and money issues. How's it looking with second and eighth house for money between me and Mr. X? Okay, I just want to make sure I got that all right. So just looking at your chart, let me save that. Just looking at your chart, some food for thought is that your eighth house of money owed and other people's money is Mars, okay? And currently, Pluto is coming into a square with your moon. So there can be some underlining subconscious intensity or frustration in regards to, you know, whether or not you're going to get paid, if you're going to have support, and back and forth in regards to somebody else's resources. Literally, Scorpio moon at a 2. So you'll be feeling that Pluto square off and on for a year. The other thing is that your second house, right, is Taurus, and you've got Uranus that's getting close to your Mars. So that's also kind of feeling like, okay, I don't want a lot of unpredictable, unexpected things going on with money. I want stability. And in the next couple of days, we're going to see Mars go into Taurus. That's going to be on the 8th. And then it's going to oppose your moon and square Pluto. So like the 8th through, I would say, about the 14th can be a little intense about money owed and getting what you need and like not wanting any shocks or surprises in regards to that stuff. So just fair warning. Next year, Uranus will hit your Mars, and so that can also bring some stuff up. But before that, the Mars-Uranus conjunction in mid-July will also bring some stuff up. And that's going to be about you being like, I need to get paid. So look for that energy to start happening around, let's say, the 13th of July, up until when Mars goes into Gemini, which will be on July 20th. So mid-July, there's some intensity there. Anyway, let's look at your chart with theirs. So it looks like they have got their Neptune very close to your Neptune. That's not a big deal because you got that placement. Venus rules your second house, and they have Uranus right on your Venus. So first of all, I'm sure you know, Venus in the Venus being in the 6th house can be a precursor or an indication of divorce. Venus, Uranus as well, and their Uranus is right on that. So the disruption in money and relationships stems from the fact that they have Uranus on your Venus. And also their Sun in your 12th house opposes this. So that's also kind of feeling like maybe there's always reasons, excuses for why they don't have something, why they can't be showing up. It opposes your Venus where you're like, I need more. And then it can feel also kind of like mentally draining, trying to get them to commit to something or communicating with them because Mercury's on your South Node. Oof. This can be really difficult, and it can kind of feel like anytime you're trying to nail something down or having clarity with this person that there is not a lot of stability there, basically. When I flip it around, they're a Gemini rising. They have in their 8th house Saturn, so that can be talking about limiting energies in regards to money with other people. The moon rules their resources, and they have the moon in Libra, where the South Node is now. So that's also an indication of there not really being a lot of stability with finances and kind of like not thoroughly thinking things through in terms of spending, or they can be a little more reckless with spending than usual. The good news is that that's a quick moving transit. The good news is also is that there are a number of planets that are getting ready to move into their 2nd house, trining Saturn. So that means that there can be some stability coming with finances that can get better at the end of June. Granted, all of these planets will oppose Capricorn, which is the money that they owe you. And there's going to be 2 full moons in Capricorn. So for a Gemini rising to have 2 full moons in Capricorn, end of June, end of July, that means there's going to be more focus and more emphasis with other people being like, I need support, I need to get paid, alimony, child support, back taxes, whatever. And Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is sitting in conjunction to their Mercury. And also, it's going to be about tough love and tough conversations, being like, look, you need to be employed, or you need to be making changes, or you need to be really kind of showing up, because there is more pressure coming from other people in terms of being paid. You want to see positive long-term, outer planets that are going to be positively impacting the moon. Well, what's nice is that Jupiter on the ascendant will trine the moon, which means that, yes, if they are, really doing their due diligence to be more responsible, showing up, being optimistic, seeing other doors that are opening professionally, it can bring more money in. But, this person does have Chiron conjunct the sun in the 10th house. So there is some kind of wound revolving around career and consistency and responsibility as well. And when Saturn retrogrades over Mercury, it's almost like there's going to need to be like a sit down and like refining some of the agreements when it comes to money owed. And that looks like that's going to be happening in November. So I don't really see it as you giving them that until that period of time to pay you. But it means that maybe by then they have changed jobs. Maybe they're making more money. You might reassess whether or not they owe you money, they have to pay you back if they are kind of behind on some of their payments. But that's most likely going to come up again for you in November. And then Jupiter being in their 1st house, opposing Jupiter in their 7th, means that they're going to be like, well, I'm doing all of these things and, somebody else needs something from me, square Saturn. So they can get a little bitter over them working really hard and feeling like they're being really productive and they're starting to kind of make headway. And it can be difficult with them actually parting with some of the resources that they have. So be mindful of that as well. But Jupiter's trining the moon all year, so it's good for career stuff, and it's also good for being able to, be more generous and kind of helping. But I think that long term, when you've got somebody who's got some career boo-boos and some Saturn, Venus, Mars stuff in the 8th house, a lot of it's about money management, and it's about the agreements that they've made with other people, and like whether or not, that's something that is a karmic lesson. Obviously, Saturn in the 8th house is about give and take with other people, and that entanglement between the two of you. So hopefully that's helpful and kind of giving you some insight. But definitely with your chart, I could see there just being less and less patience about getting paid back from somebody, especially as Uranus is coming into conjunction with Mars. You're not going to be as patient with other people, right? Hope that's helpful for you. Who else do I have? I've got Ariel. You just barely got in there, my dear. What's going on? Nope, wrong Ariel. Hold on a second. Where is that? I thought I put you in there. Let's see. I guess not. Let me plug you back in. 8/13/98. Rock Hill, South Carolina, 554. York. Right. So we have got Ariel, August 13th, 98. I've experienced extreme highs and lows of success and prosperity since I've been 21. The last 3 years have been a turbulent downfall. I was working in a field I wasn't aligned with. I've been in a massive financial hardship, and I am wanting to know the guidance of the cosmos have for me in finally breaking free and gaining my life back in regards to being on the wrong career path and gaining true financial freedom and peace following my right path. Thank you very much. I tune into all your videos. It's not a loaded question, no worries. Hopefully that was helpful. Only an Anchor. The timeline with him is definitely coming to an end. Okay, so ups and downs in career. There's been a lot of stuff that's been turbulent, especially in regards to feeling like you were not in alignment with the job that you were working. You know, I'm really looking at the pretty complex T-square you have. So Mars, Pluto rules your 10th house of career because you've got Scorpio in the midheaven. Right now, Pluto in Aquarius is squaring your midheaven. So it represents this profound moment of like crisis, breakthrough, major changes within yourself. And it's about changing something about your career and your identity. Okay. While that's happening, it is activating your Neptune, Saturn, Venus square. So a lot of understanding what's happening is like really understanding the archetypal makeup of this. So where Neptune is about inspiration, it can be about creativity, it can be about sacrifice, it can be about isolation, it can be about mental health issues. This Moon Saturn in Taurus can mean, you know, difficult karmic lessons revolving around emotions, resources, home and living or family. And then Venus, which deals with obviously relationships, partnerships, and harmony. So your Moon Saturn says that there is this karmic thing, and I don't know if it's like women in the family have to work hard, they have to provide, you know, challenges and limitations revolving around home, housing, and family, like those kinds of themes. You do have a exalted moon though in the 4th house in Taurus, so that's strong. And this is the focal point of the T-square between Neptune and also Venus. I feel like this is a chart that reads that working really hard to kind of bring home the bacon, you know, have the financial security, be able to have the home, take care of yourself, or maybe even other people. And there's been a sense of like working so hard to provide for other people or to make up for security that maybe you feel like you didn't have, that you found yourself working a career or doing something just to kind of like keep up. And then you realize like, this is not worth it. I might have money, I might be comfortable, but ultimately you may feel like it was actually alienating you more from relationships or causing more problems. So it's a really complex square that you have. You know, Moon square Neptune, sometimes emotionally, it's difficult to kind of understand your emotions and your feelings and your needs. Moon conjunct Saturn is like very much emotionally hardened as a result of challenges with home, you know, mother, family figures, especially with Moon conjunct Saturn in the 4th square Neptune. There's this feeling of like maybe working hard to create security because you didn't have it as a kid, or maybe you had a mom that was always working, and so now it's like ingrained in you that that's all you do. And then Saturn square Venus is, okay, well, I don't understand. I gave them everything. Why don't they love me back? You know, and I've sacrificed all of these things. So the key here is that, number one, Saturn is not your enemy. Okay, it will feel like that. I also have Saturn in the 4th, so I can give you this ahead of time before you get into your Saturn return. Saturn is not your enemy. Saturn is your chart ruler. So because Saturn is in the 4th house, it basically means that your number one lesson that you're going to learn all the way up until about 31, 32 is my home is a reflection of my heart, and it's about having stricter boundaries with what you're paying for, whether that's your rent or, you know, what you're buying for your home, or who you're letting live with you, or who you're taking care of. That's number one. And then number two is that because the moon is so close to Saturn, it's also talking about these karmic relationships with like women in the family and kind of healing ancestral patterning. So what's happening right now, prior to your Saturn return, which is not going to happen for a little while still, is Pluto's hitting your Neptune, where you're like, I am having a meltdown, and relationships are changing and money feels out of reach. Part of this is Saturn's also in your 2nd house. But while it does that and it's creating some relationship issues, it's squaring Saturn in your moon. So it means that you're like, I'm going through changes. It's affecting my home life. It's affecting my relationship with other people, within my family, all of that stuff. So until Pluto gets out of about 3 or 4 degrees, which is going to be a couple years, you're feeling that. So when you have a T-square like this, you got to do the focal point of the square. And Saturn moon means sometimes you go home, sometimes you are living with grandma, sometimes you are having to, you know, be your own parent and take better care of yourself emotionally and take better care of your home. Maternal grandmother still works full-time in her 70s, provides for awful children. Mom is always working. Okay, so see what I'm saying? Like, there is some like karmic bounds revolving around hardworking women at home within the family. And I really feel like because your Saturn conjunct the moon means that you're observing where women doing this has almost like isolated them or made them alone and caused issues in relationships. So I would say just observe that. Anyway, Pluto transits are long. So because Pluto is so active in your chart with the conjunction and the opposition of Venus, you can feel like you're sometimes kind of on your own and it's difficult to relate to other people in a romantic sense. But I do think that one really solid Mars transit will change your career. And you have some of those coming. So, you know, for example, planets are going to go through Cancer, and that's going to be in July. That can be really good for changes with your career and interviewing and, you know, having other options and things like that, because 7th house is support. It's going to trine your Jupiter and your Saturn. The other thing that I'm thinking about is that you are going to have a Mars retrograde that's going to be taking place in your 7th house. And that'll be at the end of the year. So that can also indicate changes with relationships, changes with career and status. That's going to be really significant for you January, February, March. Then you're going to see next year, Jupiter is going to be going into Cancer, and it's going to come into your 11th house. And as it's doing that, it's going to trine your 10th house. So I don't know what you do work-wise. Obviously, Chiron in the 10th house can be wounding, revolving around work and your identity out in the world. But I think that with all of these transits, what you're learning this year with the retrogrades in your 7th is like working with a counselor, working with a coach, working with a mentor, working closer with clients, developing better relationships with other people, having support from others, because it's all those transits, those retrogrades and stuff are going to be trining your Jupiter. So it's going to be bringing you opportunities to make money. If you got Jupiter in Pisces, you know, I don't know if you do something creative or something that is, you know, connected to art or music. But Jupiter in Pisces in 2nd house is a nice placement. You're going to have an eclipse there in September. So money is going to get better. 100%. Money is going to get better. Where is that eclipse? That is going to be here. Okay. So you're going to have some kind of boost in support from other people because you'll have an eclipse in your 2nd house of money on top of your Jupiter, trining your Mars and your Venus in the 7th house. So things are going to get better with relationships, also with resources. But I think the key here is with all Capricorn risings, you know, eclipses in the North Node going through the 4th houses, got to take care of home, got to take care of emotions, got to get restabilized before you start to see some of the other things come in. So there's more of a priority with what's going on with your home front first and getting secure, making sure you have everything you need, even if you're living in a situation that's different or if you're having to move. And then you're going to start to see changes with relationships and money that are going to follow in the fall. That's what I've been working on the past couple of years. I got my own way, a lot of issues with mental health stuff, but I have faith and believe in myself. Yeah, I mean, the Pluto-Neptune transit is not fun. Been there, done that. Especially it's so highly aspected in your chart that the Venus in opposition to Neptune is going to be like going through so much of your own stuff and healing your own stuff that you're kind of like keeping certain people at a safe distance. And you move back home. So there you go. So, you know, I do think that the retrogrades in your 7th house are going to be turning points. So like August and then December through March of next year, those retrogrades are very personal for you because they're going to be hitting, you know, obviously very, very close to your North Node, to your Sun, and you're going to have Mars retrograde over your Venus and your Mars. A Mars retrograde can actually bring somebody back from the past, or it can bring in some kind of karmic connection or soulmate. So don't look at it as those relationships aren't coming. Look at it as more like you're focusing on getting regrounded and structured and really focusing on creating the space so you feel like you can create more or you have more opportunity to kind of get back into the swing of things. But I think when the eclipse happens in the fall, Saturn hits your Jupiter, North Node hits your Jupiter, you're going to find that that's when like the wealth and the rebuilding and also the rebuilding of the self-esteem is really going to start to kind of come back. And that'll be a really cool transit to see Saturn hit your Jupiter because there's like a renewed sense of faith in yourself, you know? So hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight. Really interesting chart you got there with all those T-squares. Definitely stay on the up and up with what's going on with Pluto the next couple of years. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on Friday night. I appreciate it. You can catch me here every Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. I'll be back on Sunday talking on astro weather. We're going to discuss this up and coming Mercury Cazimi, so you guys don't want to miss it. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll catch you next time.